I woke up in the middle of the night on Friday morning, our time in Australia, and I've had some real trouble sleeping lately. And so it's 2:00 in the morning in Sydney, and I'm trying to count sheep and do all the usual stuff that you do. Just wasn't working. And so after about an hour, I go, fuck it, I'm awake, just, get up and do something. So jump on the old internet, check some Discords, and then all hell proceeds to break loose when this deluge of news comes our way regarding Season of Mastery. And I thought, fuck, what a great morning to not be able to sleep. This is actually working out really well for me. And it was just mayhem, really, for the next 2 hours when we got these two blue posts. First, the one about the Black Lotus, and then the next one with all the real details about the way in which some content is being moved forward now for Phase 1 of Season of Mastery. I could not be more excited for this game. I was already at a 10. Now I'm at a fucking 11. And so I reached out immediately to the following two gentlemen who are joining me on this call. You all know them. You all hopefully absolutely love them as much as I do. I always say this, and I mean it with these guys. It's been way too long. Defcamp and Melderon, how are you guys?
Great.
I am doing great. We're doing great. Yes.
Yeah. It's a really good time to be a WoW fan, I think.
It is.
Hell
it really is.
Yeah.
Look, this is something that's really reinvigorated my lust for WoW. I don't doubt there's a lot of people that were very down on either WoW or Blizzard, understandably, given what's been happening lately. I was on the record, though, saying, look, despite how you feel about Blizzard and all the bullshit that's going on there, my personal feeling is that WoW is a bit of an institution. I wasn't going to quit WoW, even though I'd walked away from TBC. I wasn't quitting WoW. It's a part of my life. It's been a part of my life for a long time. I can, in the same gesture, denounce what Blizzard has done while also still enjoying the one product of theirs that I happen to like. And I still stand by that. And Season of Mastery, everything that they're doing with Season of Mastery, I have had my lust for life reinvigorated with these changes. I think it's going to be a really fun server, and I couldn't be more excited. We haven't heard from you guys in a while, and even though you've talked about this in other sources, just real quick, I would say, not so much are you excited for Season of Mastery, but when we read this news yesterday, did that change the way you feel about Season of Mastery? Defcamp, I'll start with you.
Absolutely. Yeah. I've been on this show before, obviously, and have talked about how much I was a huge fan of TBC and how TBC was always my favorite iteration of the game and how I couldn't wait for it. And something funny happened, right? Is like, as I was playing TBC, as TBC came out, I find myself really missing Classic WoW. And I did not expect this to happen at all. And, not so much the fact that like I don't enjoy TBC. It's just that certain things have happened, right, over the time, whether it's been the hype for TBC, whether it's been the boost, all these different situations. My personal server is not the healthiest server. And I just really found myself missing those key moments from Classic WoW, those random moments, those things that happen. And, when I heard about Season of Mastery, potentially, first without, having world buffs and, things that I had really been excited for, and then now recently hearing that, these other recent changes, I am actually more hyped now for Season Master than I feel like I really ever was for TBC. So I just got to say, yeah, I've really changed my perception of Classic over the years. And I think that, as far as like when I look at TBC, I still think of it as on paper being the best iteration of WoW. But when I'm playing a game and having fun, Classic WoW is always the game that I will come back to, I feel like. And another thing, because Melderon probably won't mention this because he's a little, I don't know. But I just got to say that, a lot of us are part of a chat where we talk to developers and stuff like that. And I just want to say that almost every point that Melderon had put in that chat, I feel like Blizzard, I don't know, I'm not tooting his horn, but they had taken a lot of, I feel like either it was a coincidence or not, but a lot of the things that Melderon had put in that chat, I feel like Blizzard has now implemented in Season of Mastery. So thank you, Melderon, for doing what you did. I think, I don't know
it's
if
not
it had
just me,
that
right?
effect.
It's not just me.
No, it's not just you. I just wanted to say that, though. I don't know if you really recognize, I think that, but I think, for one thing, obviously a lot of people have put in some really amazing things, but I think, and I said this to Melderon the other day, I think Melderon has a really good outlook on things when it comes to the game. Like, he has his own personal preferences, but he realizes a lot of things that might be good for the community and whatnot. Nice. So I don't know. I think that it's really cool to see that as well.
Yeah, I'll jump in and just before I throw it to you, Melderon, not to speak for Melderon, but I'd say that people have been saying somewhat similar stuff to me in the last couple of days, because I was a big proponent of the Black Lotus thing, and I've been vocal about that and like you say, Defcamp, you're right that you, Melderon, and I are lucky enough to be in a couple of Discords that are quite different in tone and sort of what gets said there, that where we do speak to the class. One is sort of with the classic team and the other is more with Blizzard PR. And, whilst I've mentioned things about there, I've been on Twitter, I've been on the podcast, I would be the first one to say, kind of like Melderon is saying as well, it's not me. Like, these are very popular suggestions I happen to be a fan of as well. And I think it's community really asking for this stuff, that it's great to see Blizzard actually reading the room and latching on to these really popular changes. So I'm not discounting Melderon as well. I think it's super important that guys like Melderon, the content creator fans of the game, are in there giving really, really poignant constructive criticism about how they feel the server might be delivered to us. But it's that plus this onslaught of like this wave of opinion that I think has finally caught their eye, that they've been ignoring so long. Sorry, Melderon, I don't mean to put words in your mouth.
Oh,
you might absolutely say, shut up, it was all me. I don't know, but go for it.
No. You know me better than that, right? And I don't think that's true, obviously. So I think let's just say it this way. If I were to create a classic WoW refresh, I think they got pretty much most of the things I would hit on. I'm still, we've had this conversation before in multiple Discords. I'm still a little wary about one thing that kind of scares me, but I think that we can talk about that. I don't know if you want to talk about that now or later, but there's like one aspect that I'm a little wary about, but everything else kind of is exactly what I would want. The only thing I do, and this is aside from what I was just alluding to, the lack of world buffs thing is great for people like us. But there's a very, I don't know if it's large, but there's a portion of the community that I feel like has kind of been pushed aside, and it's more the speedrunner, meta lover, pumper. And I'm just wondering, like, why they didn't do a fresh era fresh. And it's probably because it would split the player base up too much, right? But
yeah. One thing I said as soon as we got the Season of Mastery announcement and all the World Buff fans lost their fucking collective shit. I said it day one then, and I still say it now, and everything we've heard from Blizzard has only confirmed this. My point was, I don't want to sound too harsh when I say this, but I'm like, relax. Yeah. I'm sure they haven't forgotten about you, but you literally just had your game for 2 years. We're 3 months after that ended. We're giving the other little guy a bit of a shot, and I'm sure they'll get back to you guys later. And they've actually already said via a blue post, effectively, and I'm paraphrasing here, don't worry, you speedrunners and World Buff fans, we will get back to you. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just let the kids have their toy for 12 months with the changes in Season of Mastery. And that's why I'd like the guys who have been really blowing up about no world buffs. It's been tilting me. It's really, really been tilting me. I have bitten my tongue on the show so hard, but there are some very prominent voices that have really, had a very large cry about this. And I've just been like, please show some patience. I have no doubt they haven't forgotten you, and it looks to be the case.
And the easy way to fix that is just do an air refresh, right? Like if you do an air refresh, it's fixed, in my opinion. Like my only concern in that is are you breaking the player base up too much? I don't know. But,
because also you have to look at the fact is like, if they do an air refresh, you have to worry about, Era Fresh, the Season of Mastery, and then potentially Wrath coming out. I think in a perfect world, having an era of having a classic fresh, like a true one there would be great. But I think the easiest answer was just to have seasons that explore all the next season could be Season of Madness that is just fully incorporates world buffs into the game. You can go into the instance, turn all world buffs on, something like that. And I think, that's the beauty of the seasons where we could have these short, 1 year seasons and try to do something for, certain player bases, right? Certain aspects of that people like. So I think that's the beauty of that. And, Josh and other people have explored potentially other seasons. And, and I think there's a lot of people out there who have, valid concerns and valid points. But like I said, Josh, I think there's a huge amount of the player base who like ourselves would like to, try to challenge ourselves in the classic era, whether that being, new mechanics on boss fights or no world buffs. And I'm really looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And, and if it's not your thing, I'm sure there will be something in the future, another season where they're going to incorporate something like that,
Yeah. And I think that's something that I wouldn't be shocked to see where, and sorry, I'll say hello to our dear Canadian friend coming in off the top rope. Ayle, how are you, mate?
Pretty good. Cue the wrestling intro right now.
Is that Ayle's music? The boys were giving you shit before we started recording, and they're like, oh, typical fucking Ayle, always running late.
Is that so? Because I had to wait 2 hours for these two friggin' Philadelphians to eat a 10-course meal, fucking tomatoes and pizza, just chowing down while I'm patiently waiting.
We had Indian for your information.
Yeah. And they took an hour and a half to make the food, apparently. So, yeah.
So, Ayle, let me throw it to you, Ayle, to introduce you into what we're talking about, because, I think you and Melderon at the outset, and I mean, with this on day one of the announcement, whether it was 6 weeks ago or whatever, you guys were notably a little bit down on what you thought Season of Mastery was going to be. And look, that might still be the case, but, when Defcamp goes into that description of what things could be in future seasons, and once again, Blizzard's language has all but confirmed future seasons. I wouldn't be shocked to see next season as something like Defcamp is saying, where, like, as extreme as visit the vendor outside the raid portal and get your free world buff, and then, hey, how we gave all that support to the hardcore people? Well, here's some support to the speedrunners, and here's a little thing you can click on with a timer built in game, and we record your times and send them somewhere. I don't know, some shit like that. Why wouldn't you ask for a little bit more incorporation? If they did it for one group, let's do it for another.
Absolutely.
So it's funny because I think that the people who are complaining about world buffs and are so happy that they're not there in Season of Mastery would be, open to playing with them again in 12 months' time, just not now.
Yeah.
So, and whereas, when it's vice versa, the world buff people are like, no, I won't play on this server without world buffs. It's like, fucking grow up. But anyway, Ayle, how do you feel about it now? And what's your thought on what's to come in general?
Yeah, I've kind of really turned around on it. At first just like the whole idea of not having it and harder content I thought was really at odds. After the communication from Blizzard and a little bit more info, I feel like I've come around on it, and even in a sense gotten more excited about it because, I've played private servers, and there's always something there where you
wait,
kind of
what?
want to.
You never told me that.
Yeah,
how could you?
I'm a pirate, so there's always that feeling, especially when you've done speedrunning and played a certain way, that like you want to do that again and you want to improve on that and things like that. And I think that's a lot of where those people are coming from, is that those servers. There's some people who just like to do fresh after fresh after fresh after fresh, and like they just do that nonstop. Like
I think I've become that guy.
Yeah, and it's they have their flavor, which is vanilla, and they want to just vanilla, right? So we're getting sprinkles now, and they aren't happy, and they're throwing a hissy fit. I wouldn't say I threw a hissy fit. I do have a little bit of concern about it where I felt like it was at odds, but the more I've heard from them, the more I've liked it. I feel like now what they're doing, they're not like, I originally thought they were trying to cater to like kind of a specific set, but I think what they're actually doing, reading between the lines, is they're trying to shake it up a bit. They don't want to give people the same classic that I can go on YouTube, I can look up a Defcamp and Melderon guide, and I can go in and fucking crank it, right? I think this is what they're trying to do, where people are going to have to go in and they're going to have to play the game like and figure stuff out on their own.
Yep.
It's a huge shakeup with all the stuff, especially they've announced the past few days. It's got my juices flowing just thinking about possibilities, you know.
Oh, baby.
And I think that's what's going to be most exciting for the community, the people who are interested in Season Mastery, or maybe people who weren't before where, well, actually, there's so much different now that the people who want to theory craft and look into things, there's a lot there because, you know, having the dungeon sets in, that's huge. Like that's a crap ton of content. I think people don't realize that's going to be totally different in phase 1. That's going to be hard. You got to collect all your pieces. Yeah. And like 45-minute strat run in phase 1 when everybody just leveled, like that's going to be a lot harder to do. Killing Valthalak, he has 50% more HP than Dragosath. Like, and he's a huge bitch. He hits so hard. You know, he's the AoE shadow and stuff. Like I think it's going to be really interesting.
I didn't even think of that. As I got my Rogue Dungeon set in original vanilla, but it was like at the very end, and it wasn't. But getting it early on is going to be totally different. It's going to be. That's the thing that I think. Like looking back, like Josh on your original like Countdown to Classics, like so many of us were so careful to say like, oh, we don't want to see things change. But that's when we were talking about. You know, we were talking about Classic coming back out, right? The iteration of the game that we all remembered. This is something completely brand new. This is something completely different. And I think a lot of us automatically felt that hesitation that we felt back in the day. But, oh, man, they're going to change things. Like, how can we trust this team? It's not the same team. But what they're doing now, like Ayle, like you just said, they're shaking stuff up. They're making it more interesting. A lot of us have played Classic WoW. You know, I've played on 2 private servers. We played back in the day. We played on Classic. It's nice to be able to be in the Classic realm and then to have something a little bit different. And from what I've seen from a lot of these boss fights that have changed, they're still in the vein of that boss, right? So like, you know, Shazra has, you know, mechanics that like Shazra should have, like things that seem, you know, pretty cool and in the vein of like what they should be. So, you know, I'm really excited for it. I think this is something that we could potentially, you know, mess around with in so many different ways. But again, you know, would it be cool to have the iteration of the game around also, the old one? Yeah, but this is like the next best thing. And a lot of people who have talked about Classic Plus, right? You know, I think this kind of is them maybe looking at that as well. And
this is Classic Half Plus.
This is Classic Half Plus, basically, right?
I kind of mean my words a little bit because, like I said, for a solid year, or maybe even longer, I don't trust Blizzard. Right, I said it so many times. Don't trust them to do anything to this game. Right, and I said that so many times on so many podcasts and so many videos and so many.
Yeah, you weren't alone. You weren't alone.
Yeah. And I haven't played it yet, but it seems like they're really thinking outside the box here. And what they're really doing is like I think we all use these words. They're trying to mix it up, but I think what it really gets down to is they're trying to recapitulate what it was like to play the first time. Right, They're trying new inventive ways to make vanilla feel like vanilla. And as long as it feels like vanilla, I think that's great. Like that's, if you go into a raid and you don't know for sure exactly what spec you have, you don't know for sure what this boss is going to do, or like that's what vanilla was like, right? And I think if we can get anywhere close to that feeling, then we're winning, right? And I think that's what these changes kind of really do.
I'll say this one last thing on it and just open it up to you guys before we do move on to the specificities of these changes. But look, I've noticed, and I love hearing, Ayle saying what he said, because I've been super, super positive about Season of Mastery from the get-go. I'm really trying to build the hype train. I've really loved this from the outset. And to hear Ayle really come around on it has just filled my heart with joy. Because I think Ayle is of a certain, and I don't mean to speak out of school here, Ayle, but I think Ayle is of a certain personality where he is the tinkerer. He does want to work stuff out. He is the kind of gamer that enjoys being presented with a challenge or a puzzle within an MMO and like, hey, here's something new. Can you beat this? And you go, let's see how I go. So I think what's happening now is we are starting to see more and more people that were initially down on Season of Mastery, as we get more and more news about it, start to turn around. Because I think what we're doing is we're drawing in the true gamers. That's what gaming is. Here's a problem. Can you solve it, right? Within a, lovely virtual environment with lovely graphics and sounds and everything. That's what gamers want to do. The people that we're losing who are saying, fuck that, this is shit, I have no interest in this server, they have a particular way of playing the game in that they only want to destroy content that they know inside and out. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. You play the game how you want to play it. You enjoy what you want to enjoy. But we're losing them and we're gaining the people who are stepping up to something different that I'll have to put some brain power into. Sign me up.
I mean, yeah, definitely. I think people are a bit misinformed, though, at least with speedrunning, because that does present its own challenges that you would have to tinker with as well, right? And so people generally would think it was really brainless and things like that, but there was a lot of innovation and things that went on. I'm glad to see them adding that kind of thing for everybody else to do now that's totally fresh and, isn't going to be, I know the guide makers are just, going crazy right now trying to figure stuff out, but at least going into it, I think it's going to have, it's a whole new world,
Sorry, the world of speedrunning, you're right to bring that up, Ayle. I should say, I do give the hardcore speedrunners a pass mark when you're actually recording times and competing against other speedrunners. I understand why you want the old content that has been worked out. But if you're not a speedrunner and you're sort of anti-SOM, I don't really know what to tell you. But, people will like what they like, and it's not for me to change people's minds on that. That's fine. But look, guys, let's get into the news because there is so much to go through here. There really, really is. I barely know where to start because it all seems quite heavy. Let's go with Maul. Initially coming out in Phase 2, it's been bumped up. We all know that Maul has some very good gear in it. It has stats in there that starts to affect things like hit and whatnot that people really do favor in Molten Core when the game is early and you are starved for sort of really, really decent gear to a certain extent. And we'll separate this from the tier 0.5 stuff that we'll get into next because that's another instance of really, really good gear being bumped up. So, and then also the PvP stuff on top of that. So it's a really, really sort of not necessarily complex conversation, but it's got multiple facets to it when we're talking about shifting gear up in the calendar release cycle. Maul, I should just ask generally, and I'll start with you, Defcamp. Are you surprised to see this given what we've been told from Blizzard that they want to do with this server? And how impactful is Maul for a loot-starved player early in Molten Core?
Yeah, so it's funny. Melderon and I were, the day before this announcement came out, I was talking about Melderon and about how I think Maul should be out on the launch for SOM. And the reason being is getting into Molten Core without Maul gear, if the content is going to be harder. I mean, having Maul gear and not having Maul gear is going to be a huge impact in Molten Core. I'm looking at the aspect of a healer, right? First, healing gear that's available in Maul is amazing, compared to what's out there in, BRD, Schoool, and whatnot, when it comes to, offhands, weapons, just so many different items. And I think their thought process with this is, the content's going to be a little bit more difficult, right? The pace of it is going to be quicker. I think if they were to bring out Molten Core without Maul, it would be a little bit maybe too,
a little bit too much with the new mechanics and stuff.
Too much. I think having Dire Maul available is going to make it so that people will have a little bit of a better time, a little bit of an easier time. Now, I'm not saying it's not possible without Dire Maul gear. It definitely is. We saw, Apes clear, Molten Core and all greens and people like level, 58 and stuff like that, right? So it's definitely possible to clear Molten Core. But again, we're going to be having new mechanics. I know for a fact a lot of the new mechanics is going to be a lot more, AoE damage and things like that. So having a little bit more healing gear, having a more DPS gear, like let's be honest, the gear from Dire Maul is a huge step up from a lot of the gear that you get from the rest of the end game dungeons.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing is the other things you get from Dire Maul, like the food, the quest, and for mages, and is it the food they get from Dire Maul, right? Yeah, I forget.
There's the food and drink, the drink, the water.
Little things like that, I think. But the gear
water's
for the
huge,
most part, it's going to be huge.
Tarnished Elven Ring, Quell Sarar, fucking Mind Tap Talisman, like all these things that are.
For a priest, I mean, you get Padres, you get it's
those are good too.
Yeah,
Melderon, let me throw it to you and just sort of inject this little comment where Defcamp's raised a good point, and this was something that I know you were wary of. I initially was not wary of, but started to grow wary of, sort of as more days passed. As we were getting more news, but if Dire Maul were not coming. If the tier 0.5 set was not coming, if the PvP grind wasn't, made a little bit quicker, and where we're back in the news cycle that we were in 2 weeks ago, where we didn't know about stuff, I was starting to grow concerned that, and we've talked about this a little bit, that the double health pool of the bosses, plus the new mechanics, plus the scarcity of loot given the 12-month cycle, was maybe starting to encroach on dangerous territory with just being a little bit too much. Even though I was excited by all of those things as individual pieces, combined, I felt like, oh, geez, now I feel like we're pushing the player base a little bit, And I think you did agree with that, but this really does change everything, doesn't it?
Yes, it changes things for Molten Core. I think that I'm still wary. My main concern with Season of Mastery is this. I'll just put it out there. I talked about this before. Basically, there's two design philosophies or pillars that they're incorporating. One is harder raids, no world, which is higher HP, no world buffs, more mechanics. So that's pillar one. Pillar two is faster cadence. And we can throw in the loot scarcity with that. I think those are the two pillars.
Right.
My concern is if you combine those two things, will it cause players to get miffed and burned out and not want to complete the content? So I'm still wary of that. That's my only main concern with Season of Mastery. And yes, this helps for sure. But will it help in AQ? Will it help in BWL? Will it help in Nax? I don't know, right? So that's the point that I'm kind of basically that's the only thing I'm wary about. And I said this many times in both of the Discords, and I said, this is my only concern. I hope I'm wrong, right? But if you look at TBC, where it isn't sped up, 68% of guilds as of last week are still 8 out of 10 in Tier 5. We're halfway through the tier probably, right? Is that going to happen in Classic? And if it does happen for too long, and if it's shorter, and that kind of, those numbers are happening in Season of Mastery, will people get burned out? Will they stop playing? There's a certain amount a player can take when it comes to not getting loot or not clearing content to the point where they get bored or whatever, right?
And SSC and TK are testing that, aren't they? Currently in TBC,
they are.
Yeah,
yes,
yeah,
they are. And I think TBC is a harder expansion. I don't know how these new raids are going to compare to TBC raids. I don't even know if it's apples and oranges, right? But TBC, I know a lot of people don't like it and a lot of people don't play it, but the raids are fucking phenomenal. Like, they're so well designed. And so, and that's fine, but you're seeing a lot of burnout in TBC on a normal scale, on a normal time scale, Still, I don't know what's going to happen, right? That's my only concern with Season of Mastery. But again, it may not be as hard as I'm thinking. Maybe it's not as hard as I I don't know what they plan. Like, they better not buff Nax, because, like, Nax without world buffs alone, I think is a buff.
Yeah.
Right? So
that's
yeah,
definitely something I raised. That I certainly said that when it comes to AQ to a lesser extent, but certainly Nax, like, just because they've majorly changed Molten Core doesn't necessarily say that what's going to happen to all of the raids.
Right.
Now, what I would think would be part of the design ethos for AQ and Nax would be, again, not necessarily making Nax more difficult, but maybe the keyword is different. I don't know.
Yeah, shaking up the encounters so that people aren't doing the same fight as they did before. Yeah, right.
It's kill the old strategies. It's not necessarily make it harder. Just kill the old strategies.
Yeah, I like that, Josh, because, like, if you were to just double the health of, like, say, Sephiron or Kel'Thuzad, like, imagine doubling the health of Sephiron, right? That is a fight where, as a healer, you're racing against time. That fight without world buffs, we've done it without world buffs, and it's a challenge without world buffs. I could not imagine that fight being double I mean, you would have to, it would be just ridiculous. So I think, changing it up in some aspect would be pretty cool.
Yeah. Guys, let's finish up on Dire Maul, and just if there's any, Ayle, I'll throw it to you, if there's any other specifics that we really need to shout out. I'm sitting here sort of wondering who are the winners and losers of Dire Maul being released so early. Hunter's come to mind as a massive winner. I'm trying to think of other, and obviously the guys have shouted out some of the priest items as well. Tell me what else you think about Dire Maul and anything that has you licking your lips in glee. Yeah,
so, I mean, I think them having this out as well as a tier 0.5 set, even though they didn't explicitly say it, this is throwing a bone to the people who've been saying that loot's going to be too scarce, because when a lot of this was released in Classic, the gear was already mostly not that great for people, right? Them having this in early, where it throws everything up for itemization, it's going to change so much. A lot of it is on par or really close to MC gear, at least changes your, like, pre-Abyss. And, like, that's going to be huge. Like, I mean, Melderon, the tier 0.5 boots, those are baby chromatics, those are super good. 20 strength, 20 stam, 1 crit, 1 hit on boots, in phase 1. Like, it's totally shaking things up, and it's giving people not only more other content to do, but, like, other avenues as well to, solve itemization problems, which I think is, like, honestly great design.
People will be running the living fuck out of dungeons through phase 1 and 2, won't they?
Absolutely.
They will.
Even more than before.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
I just remember too, Josh, the patterns. So you get High to the Wild from Dire Maul as well, which is a huge pattern. And
the healers.
Another thing I'm thinking of with the dungeon 0.5 sets, it could potentially make some hybrid classes good in MC as well. Like the elemental gear. So if you're looking at, like, an elemental shaman, the gear that they would get from the 0.5 tier set could make them almost viable in MC. What do you guys think about that?
Melderon, when Defcamp starts talking about shaman, do you look at him and go like, dude, what the fuck? Get off my corner.
Actually, it's funny. I was talking about this today with some guildies. My dirty little secret is, after playing TBC Shaman, I don't know if I could ever play Classic Shaman again. It's
really?
Oh, wow.
Man, they're just so much better.
I don't know. I love Ellie in Classic, though.
No. I'm rolling Warrior this time, Josh, because I just want to try something different, number one. And I'm also rolling Alliance, so I'm doing a totally different thing, right?
I'm doing Alliance to switch it up as well.
Yeah.
And I think that Alliance is actually probably going to be the favored faction, but we shall see.
I think so too.
Yes, yeah.
No, but I don't feel that way anymore. No, I think that kind of is I don't know. I kind of put a lot of that behind me. It's like I don't know. That was like the indelible mark I think I left on the community, which is great. I love the fact that the shaman community and all that stuff, but I think it's time for me to kind of try something different in vanilla now. Yeah, for sure.
We should go down. We should go down the line. Defcamp, I think I heard you say you're playing a rogue. Am I getting that mixed up?
So I'm going to be doing the Road to Ragnos as well, the hardcore thing, where I'm going to be playing a paladin because I feel like healing is for that. I feel like I should probably heal, but for one, I've healed Josh since original vanilla, and I've healed in original TBC. I want to do something different. I originally played rogue and I fell in love with that class, and I wanted to play more in classic, and I didn't get to. So I'm going to be really, really, really focusing on playing a rogue in Season of Mastering, and I'm really excited to do that.
Too easy. Ayle?
Yeah, I'm probably gonna play a rogue. I don't know if I'm gonna get it up to 60 or even how fast I will. Like I said, my main focus is still gonna be TBC, and I have a lot of other things kind of going on right now in my life. So I'm probably, like I said, I'm gonna play rogue. I'm gonna play it. Gonna do a lot of world PvP if I can, and
can I say something? Can I say something fucking outrageous? Even prior to this news, just keeping a cheeky little eye on what people were running on the beta. I did a lot of battlegrounds on the beta. Just every battleground I did, I took a little mental note of kind of where people were at with the classes they were picking. And obviously people were just fucking around and trying things out and seeing what they liked, so it's hard to gauge by that. But taking that into account, and then taking into account the news that dropped yesterday, which I really think is incredibly pertinent to rogues, I am not going to be shocked. Like, rogues were already going to be incredibly overpopulated. I really wouldn't be shocked if we land somewhere in the 20 to 22% range for rogues in this game. I know that's fucking weird to say, and it seems hyperbolic, but I mean, they were going to be like 17 or 18% anyway.
Well,
they're big winners from Dire Maul. That was the one class that on the question you asked I didn't answer. They get so much from there for dagger skill, and as well as having a lobotomizer early on with AV. And
well, let's go into that, Ayle. Sorry, just to cut you off. I'll keep you going after I just interject. There was an epic post on the subreddit today about, y'all better look out for the fucking phase 1 dagger rogue. And I should shout out, Fix the Mix, who was the user who put this up, has said, like you said, Ayle, the lobotomizer with the 2 to 300 wound chance on hit, lowers intellect by 25, but apparently bosses are immune to that, but it doesn't really matter. Just the 25 intellect part. They've got, Don Julio's Royal Seal with the 2% hit, the Tarnished Elven Ring from Dire Maul, Distracting Daggers, which is daggers +6, the Mugger's Belt, which is daggers +5. Like, they would just be fucking drooling.
And they can use poisons. Like, the poisons can stack up as much as they want because they don't have to worry about debuff slots. So, yeah, that makes it even more damage. And,
Ayle, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Well, I did mean to cut you off. But, yeah, what do you think of all that stuff?
I mean, yeah, that's pretty much exactly it. And, I mean, most rogues are combat. Are combat still going to be the best? Or, I mean, this definitely opens the door. The crazy thing is that I think, like, people were talking about, they're worried about class diversity. I think this itemization actually opens up class diversity by a ton. Like, you think about Dracasath, he has a bunch of spell hit items on him. Same with the tier 0.5 quest line. Those sets all have plus hit on them. It really rises the boats, for casters by having a lot more of this gear that's a lot better. Where, like, I feel like Melee, they gain a lot less from it. So
I agree.
That as well is also huge that I haven't really heard anybody talk about.
What do you make of, I'll throw this out to you, Defcamp, and then Melderon, we can hear from you, just to interject with a comment from Blizzard, where on that note, Ayle, Blizzard has already said, look, I mean, I don't think that they're pulling our leg on this one, but, whether or not they're a little bit of an agenda to promote class diversity, they've already said that we've noted through the beta that everyone testing these raids, the successful groups have been the ones that, practice diversity. If you stacked warriors and rogues, we weren't noticing as much success there. So again, like, it's some food for thought. Defcamp, go for it.
I think with the way they're designing, the way that they're implementing the raids now, so one huge factor is the debuff slot limit, right? You no longer have to worry about not bringing classes like hunters can use Serpent Sting, warlocks can use their dots, rogues can use instant and deadly poison. You can load up, bleeds and other things on these, which is going to completely change a lot of the rotations for classes. It's going to completely change a lot of the gearing. It's going to completely change, you no longer have to worry about not hotting your tank because it's going to take his world buffs off and shit like that, right? So, like, druid healers are going to be, great. And, I mean, of course you can only still have one hot, at a time. That I don't think they're not changing that, right? But, like, little things like that, I think opens the door to bring so much more diversity. You want to really use as much as you can from each class. You want to bring, as many buffers as you can, as many, people to buff each other, right? So, like, whether that's a feral druid, whether that's a moonkin, buffing, whether that's, A true. It's so many different things where I think it's going to be like you said, the best classes that are the best raids that are going to be out there are going to be the raids with the most diversity. Back in the day, you could stack warriors because warriors, especially warriors and rogues, stacked so well with world buffs, right? That's the reason why warriors were the kings of DPS back then, was because they pretty much got the best out of the world buffs, right? Whereas now you don't have world buffs anymore. You're going to try to get as many buffs from each class as you can. So I think, even bringing Shadow Priests, right? They can use all their, you don't have to worry about debuff slots. It's going to be a huge impact on raids. And I'm really excited to see how that kind of works out. And like you said, the 0.5, like Warlocks are going to have more hit, this, that, and the other. It's going to be a lot different early on. Obviously Warlocks got more hit, when CG, this, that, and the other, but it's still going to make huge changes to how things are going to be in the early days. Yeah.
I think that I just think it's refreshing to know that there's no meta right now. And there will be, of course. It'll form, but it'll form along with the raid tiers too. It won't be a set thing, It'll be you'll see a MC meta, maybe a form, right? But that might get shooken up by BWL, and that might get shooken up by AQ. It's just nice to know that you could play something and not become immediately laughed at. Now I'm not saying that's going to happen for Boomies or Elemental Shaman, but still, I mean, and they said it in the Blue Post. We're not trying to make everything perfect, right? They said that every spec, but at the same time, like, you could bring, Warlocks don't have to worry about the rotation. They don't have to just spam Shadow Bolt, right? They don't have to just, it's cool. It's really cool. Enhanced Shamans can use Storm Strike.
Yeah.
We literally couldn't use Storm Strike, because it was a debuff slot. It's awesome. I'm really looking forward to that.
Guys, one thing I'm wondering about, just to finish up on this Dire Maul point, and fuck, we're in trouble. I'll have to speed everything else up because I knew this would be a long one, and we're in point number 1 of 10, and we're like 40 minutes into the podcast. Just on the economic repercussions of Dire Maul being there, look, there was speculation out there from people going, oh, fuck, with all this mage stuff that they've touched, do you reckon they'd actually touch Dire Maul like farms? Like, what's going on there? It doesn't look like that's going to be the case. It seems like, the Dire Maul East jump run or what have you is still going to be a thing, as far as we know. Wait until we play the game, obviously. However, having that farm available from day one, my impression is that most people are okay with that. Look, and I'm really ambivalent on this point. If they take it out, I won't care. If they keep it in, I won't care. It's just whatever. I do get the impression that the majority of the player base are obviously eyeing it. It's a favorite farm of the community, and they would be keen to get in there from day one and do some damage. Do you guys have any drama whatsoever with Dire Maul, the farm, being there for the gold early on?
I mean, I created a hunter in Classic WoW specifically to solo Dire Maul East. And I think if you're able to, that's a concession. That's time I dedicated. I didn't boost him. I leveled that hunter all the way to 60 and learned how to do that farm myself. And that's how I farmed those 2 to 3 rich thorium veins at the end of Dire Maul East. Like, that's something I did for myself. Same thing argument I have for a mage doing that. There's a big difference between farming on a class that's good at farming and using that class to boost people. I think those are two different things. One to me is skill based. And boosting is skill based. I've seen mages do boosting. There's a lot into it. Like, there's a lot you need to know, especially ZG boosting. But I think that there are some classes in vanilla that are good at certain things, and you level those classes to do those things. And I think that's fine.
Yeah.
I think that's that's just my personal opinion on it. But
as a priest, my main gold making was DM East Lasher Farm, right? The only thing I'm a little worried about now is, there's a lot of high-level herbs in DM. Does that mean people are going to be going in there and potentially getting a lot of Black Lotus off of those?
Well, that's good. That means the Black Lotus prices will drop.
Right. So, essentially that would, okay. So I still think either way, it's going to be a lucrative farm, unless they mess with the drop rates, which they did originally. I think they lowered the drop rates off of the Lashers on what they dropped compared to like what it was back in original vanilla. But still, you can like as a priest, you can make pretty good money there, either from herbing and from killing lashers and things like that. And so many other classes can benefit it from as well. I don't think it's going to make too big of a difference when it comes out. You know what I mean, as terms of that. But yeah, so like I don't know exactly how the Black Lotus is going to be like what level herbs does it have to be from certain higher level herbs or whatnot. I think it's probably. I'm guessing like Dreamfoil and
probably Dreamfoil, like
Silver Sage. I don't
Silver
know.
Sage, yeah.
Surely, surely you wouldn't have it drop from ice caps. I feel like there's a zillion of them in Winter Spring.
Yeah,
that is a high level herb, though. Yeah, but yeah, that's a good point.
So I'm wondering what kind of threshold they're going to be dropping from. And like I said, if they're dropping in Dire Maul, as long as they're dropping it to a point where if a lot of people are getting them, then they'll lower the costs. Flasks won't be that expensive. That would be pretty good. So yeah, if a DM East farm becomes really popular just for like Black Lotus farms, hopefully that means that flasks are going to be really dirt cheap.
Hey,
popular opinion.
Yeah, go for it, man.
They should nerf the Hunter farm.
Well, that was my next question, Ayle. I'm so glad you said that. Let me throw it to you just to pop this in and say, does the Dire Maul tribute farm with hunters selling those tarnished elven rings or whatever the fuck it is,
that farm.
does that gain a lot more value?
Absolutely, it does, and I think it falls in the same vein as them nerfing like the Mara boosting and stuff. Like you abuse pathing to have that done, and it's like one person selling, kind of like subjugating the market. That doesn't seem to be in tune with what Season of Mastery is trying to accomplish.
That's a good point, Al.
And
handing out loot like a vending machine.
Yeah, exactly. And like on a lot of servers, there's just hunters spamming nonstop. They're just, they have their chests there and like, no, make people run the dungeon, at least, a couple or something,
yeah. What would you do?
Well, I mean, they would have to make some change to the boss or something, or the structure in there, because it's just them like going back and forth and causing the boss to path weirdly, right?
Oh yeah,
so that it never can actually hit them.
Yeah,
I mean, Melderon's done it,
charge
right?
or something, right?
Yeah. No, so there's two different farms. There's the Dire Maul North farm, which is the Tarnished Elven Ring. You get so that's a different farm than I did. I did the Dire Maul East, but it still uses this. But you're still manipulating pathing in both of those.
Yeah. Hey guys, I'll just throw it over. Sorry, to interject. It looks like we've had a listener come in and they might have a question for you guys. Hey Geordyn, how you going, man? Can you hear me?
Yeah. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, absolutely. How are you? Yeah. Thanks so much for calling in.
Perfect. Yeah. So, Ayle this whole conversation actually kind of hit on what I was thinking, but yeah, I was going to say, I really hope that they break the pathing on the Dire Maul Hunter farm, but also, to speak to Melderon's point, Defcamp's point, from earlier about the Lasher farm. As a priest, I benefited from that as well quite a bit during the first run of Classic, but I think that a lot of the reason that people do that is because everyone else is doing it, and it kind of makes it so that you have to do it to keep up, because it's inflating the economy and all this. I almost wonder if they should break instance-based gold generation in general. Like, I don't know if it's stopping those things from dropping or making it so that herbs and mining nodes only spawn if there's 5 people in the instance or something. But I feel like it's pretty uninteractive to have people in thousands of instances by themselves just doing all these sort of pathing hacks and jumps and all this shit to find ways to min-max gold generation, but then if everybody's doing it, it kind of defeats the purpose. I just didn't know if you guys had thoughts on that.
Let me just throw in one thing before I ask the guys their thoughts on that great question, Geordyn. And again, thanks so much for jumping in, man. I threw it out there a couple of weeks ago on the pod very haphazardly and without thinking anything through, just as a knee-jerk comment. What if we did something like you couldn't enter an instance unless you were, like you said, in a 5-man party, or individual solo players couldn't enter an instance. And then I was very, very quickly pointed out to all the issues with that by the players. And like I said, I just throw out the dickhead comments and then happily get all the great retorts from my very intelligent listeners. But I hear what Geordyn's saying, and what do you guys think about that? Is there any wiggle room for any kind of tinkering with the? Yeah, go for it, Dan.
Yeah, it's very interesting because when you look at the majority of botters and the majority of problems that this game has with gold, it's looking at people in an instance by themselves kind of manipulating the game or, using, and, some people obviously hack and whatnot, but like, yeah, even as just a priest, going in there and getting all the herbs and all, it's a really hard thing to say because like
there's a fine line for sure.
It's the only way I really could make money in Classic as a priest, right? It's really hard to make money as a priest. Either you have to respec Shadow and whatever, but like, yeah, I could go in there as my holy spec, spam Holy Nova, kill Lashers, get herbs, and make a good amount of gold.
And where I draw the line is pathing. When people are abusing the 15-year-old system and like abusing, abusing, whatever, like that obviously wasn't intended to be like that for the most part. And, if you're going in there and you're like, farming it using your abilities, I think that's fine. If you're doing things so the mobs can never actually hit you or touch you because you're, jumping on very specific spots, like, I think that's, at least for me, that's where it crosses the line.
You partially answered my question, Ayle, and Melderon, I'll throw it over to you because I was going to bring up, it's so hard to speak for other people, obviously, but if we were to picture a scenario where the original developers of the game were watching the way that the classic crowd plays it, and they saw that this was the bulk of gold generation in the game and how players farmed gold was people basically just going to instances solo and doing all this wild and wacky stuff. Do you think that back in the day, even though people were and could do it back then, it just obviously wasn't as loud and prevalent. Do you think they'd step in and do something? Or do you think that, maybe like Ayle said, they would just draw the line pathing? Or do you think they'd be bold enough to be like, you know what? We fucking want people farming out in the world. We don't want you stuck away from the community in an instance. Go get your gold outside. Melderon, what do you think?
Well, I think it's tough, right? Because there's different itches or scratches that this itches, right? Because I tend to agree with Ayle. If you're manipulating game systems, and as much as I love the Dharma East farm, I manipulated the fuck out of that because you literally manipulate the last boss to keep running in a circle, so he can't get you. Right?
Whoa! My mind is blowing here. Ayle played private servers. You manipulate pathing. What am I going to find out next about Defcamp? Oh my god!
Yeah, I know, right?
I have 3 nipples.
Yeah.
Sorry, go Mel.
No, it's fine. But there's something about like taking a little break from the world, running in, and I think if you're like what Ayle said, if you're a warrior or whatever, and you're able to kill all those mobs and farm them, that's cool. Like you're not manipulating anything; you're just going in there and killing them. I think that's okay. You don't have to be stuck in the world all the time. And on the flip side of that, it's kind of like a little self mission you've created for yourself, like little Metal Gear Solid. It's like you go in there, try to get this, and I think that's fine because like for me, when I did those things, I still, when I was done those couple runs, I went back into the world and I interacted again. It wasn't like I just did that, So no, I don't think that should be removed. I think classes that are able to like kill things should be able to kill them inside dungeons. But I do agree with Ayle that if you're kind of screwing with the game, that might be a line right there.
And real quick, I just wanted to say, so one thing that you could probably, so if I, leveled a hunter in TBC, and one thing they did is that when a lot of the mobs in TBC, if you try to kite them, within if you move over 30 yards, a lot of the elites, they do like a charge ability or an ability where they kind of pull you to them. If you could just add something like that to like High King or a lot of these mobs that people are manipulating with hunters, I think you could easily kind of fix it. As long as you get over, say, 30 yards range, or something like that, where they kind of do in TBC, and just add that to like High King or something like that, you could kind of easily fix that.
Yeah,
just to be sorry, go Ayle.
You still want players to be able to have freedom to come up with. Is it called divergent gameplay? Where they
emergent
gameplay, where you have new interesting things that you can do. I think that's important as long as it isn't abusing things that weren't really intended.
Yeah, as Kevin was a fan of.
Yeah, and I think that's a really cool thing about classes being able to go, solo certain things in dungeons, pending it's not like some sort of pathing or bug abuse, right?
Yeah. Just to be clear, I'm just getting the conversation started here, guys. I'm 100% in agreement with you. I have no dramas whatsoever with instance farming as a solo player. I'm just throwing out the old food for thought. But guys, let's move on. Let's go talk about. Look, we've kind of already talked about it, but just to dive in a little bit deeper. I mean, I don't think anyone was expecting this one. The tier 0.5 dungeon set being available on release. We have never obviously had a situation where this has been a factor, this early in the game. It's a throwaway set. We don't think about it. Yeah, the rogues go and get it when it comes out later on. No one else really gives a fuck. And here we are rethinking everything. I'll just ask you guys in general what you think of this. And again, I'll say, who are the winners and losers of this decision? I mean, clearly Rogue's number one with Bullet, but what else is going on here?
I have zero experience with these sets, to be honest.
I personally, had, like I said, I had gotten the set, on a private server, and I had gotten, it back in the day, and the Rogue one, obviously really good, but there are some other sets that I think you should really look at as well. Like, I said earlier, the Shaman set, right? So I really feel like if you look at this set, Elemental Shamans, in terms of like, what they can get, is a lot of cloth, right? You're getting from other classes. This is potentially a set that you could get where you might not have to, worry about rolling against a lot of clothies and things like that, because you could, get the set and it's, like I said, the shaman gear, and a lot of it is a lot of high damage and healing effect. So I think obviously, for the most part, you're going to see a lot of, rogues getting the set. But like, again, it's another set that's not bad for boomkins. It's another set that's not bad for Ellie shamans. I think this really kind of shines and helps the hybrid specs, as well as, like there are some pieces, I think, for the Warlock that gives some hit. I think like the gloves give hit. So, could potentially help Warlocks with some hit gear. The Warrior set isn't bad either. The 0.5 set, I think, 3 or 4 of the pieces of it are epic, right? So they're, pretty good stats and pretty good weights. But I think overall, 4 for each, right? So overall, it's going to, so overall, I think it's going to be helping Warlocks for sure with getting a little bit extra hit earlier on.
An Affliction Warlock would be, if not straight on hit cap going into MC, wouldn't they now?
Yeah, I would imagine so. I don't know exactly too much about Warlocks, but I think, let's see, don't
they get 10% hit from talents in Affliction?
I don't know. I never played a Warlock.
So 2 pieces of the set here give hit, so that's pretty decent. You know what I mean? And they can mix and match, other pieces to hopefully get some more hit and be hit capped going into MC. I think that would be huge if they could do that. But yeah, I think like it definitely does help. Even the they got
a lot of stats on them too, which is good. Even
the Hunter set is great as well. Exactly, and that's the other thing, Melderon, is like if a lot of these fights in MC are going to be having a lot of damage, like having those high stats, having a lot of stam, is going to be really big. Especially for me, if I'm going in doing the Road to Rag thing, like I want to have this set. Just because of how much more stam it has and other gear. A lot of the gear in Dire Maul, especially for healers, like it has like just straight up intellect, or it doesn't have any stam whatsoever. Getting this full set, could potentially be really helpful, not only in PvP but in PvE content with how much stam and other stats you get from it. So I think obviously rogues are the number one class from this, but I think, like I said, shamans, even druids and warlocks are going to get a lot of benefit from this as well, even hunters as well. Yeah.
Well, yeah. Sorry, I was right. Straight up the top of the affliction tree, it's 10% that you add to your affliction spells. So you're already sitting at 10%. I think. Don't kill me if I'm wrong, guys. I think hit cap for warlocks is 16%.
It's so if you're already casters,
yeah. There you go. So if you just add on a couple more percentage points from the gear, you're virtually at hit cap for your affliction spells, of which you will be casting a shitload of them because there's no fucking debuff cap. And now it's just your Shadow Bolt hitting that you've got to worry about. But that's a great fucking start.
Absolutely, man. 2 more pieces of hit gear that have good stats and good damage. That's I mean, look, man, people could potentially get this set. It's not easy to get, but it is going to be easier to get than tier, right? Obviously. So for a lot of people, because it takes long, especially with the raids being a little bit more difficult, especially with the time being quicker, between BWL and MC, that gap is going to be a lot shorter than it was in Classic. People can have this set farmed way before then, and it'll help them immensely.
Ayle, anything else on winners or losers from this one? How about your warriors or anything?
Yeah, I mean, like obviously first glance casters with all the additional hit from the new itemization and the tier sets. Tier 0.5 is big, but yeah, the warriors get some good pieces too. Like I said, those boots are really good. They have hit on them. A lot of the pieces have pretty good stats for as far as like strength and stamina. Not every piece is like obviously going to be Biss or Gangbusters. That's especially true with the tier 0.5 because I think even for some of the hybrid classes, they're still a little wonky, but for the pure DPS classes, there's definitely a few pieces I think in each class set that will be worth looking at.
I know no one here mains a hunter, and it's hard to say maybe for you guys on this one, but we were talking about in the Discord the other day. Gigantor threw it out there asking about any viability for the BM spec in phase 1 now, given what the hunter set does for your pet. Personally, I'm a little bit skeptical of it because you've still got the avoidance issue in raids, and your pet just gets fucking slapped around. But I mean, the pet does really get buffed by the hunter set. I can't see the meta moving from marksman though. But look, I mean, happy to be proven wrong if it does work out that way.
It's a really good solo set for hunters, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Content, that's really, really good, yeah.
But then you'd be paying 100 gold a week to switch between BM and marksman, between solo and raid content.
If you're doing DM farms, it won't be that much, it won't be that bad, but
marksman's a solid solo spec too. Super solid.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. Because hunter was my second most played class in Classic.
Fair enough. Yeah, nice. Who haven't we really touched on? Does anyone know much about what druids and mage get out of this set? Or paladins?
Paladin set. Sorry.
Be nice.
I don't think the mage set is better than what you can get from. I mean, there are some the thing about these sets is, Josh, you kind of don't look at it for other classes as the whole set. Look at it as there's some really good pieces in that set for some.
Well, the Paladin one's super weird. It gives damage and healing on everything.
Wow!
What is that for?
Well, here's the thing about Ret that
dungeon tanking.
Yeah, I would say dungeon tanking.
Yeah.
So here's the thing about paladins that I think a lot of people are going to notice so paladins, I feel like, especially Ret paladins, in order to do really good, they had to kind of, get a lot of buffs, a lot of, everything. And I think it's going to be a little bit harder to say like, hey, let's bring some Ret paladins to the raid other than the buffs that they offer. But, all in all, like, these sets are very much geared, it does like for tanking. But at the end of the day, man, I don't know. I can never really trust having a paladin tank over like a warrior tank.
Don't personally. Say that. My ult's going to be a paladin tank.
I mean,
but I'm fully aware. I'm fully aware of the repercussions of rolling a paladin tank. I've read. I wish I was joking about this, guys. I've read no less than 20 hours worth of materials and resources on paladin tanking over the last 2 weeks. I'm really, really intrigued by it. I'm going to do it anyway. I know everyone is, just do a warrior. But, I don't care about raid tanking. I care about dungeon tanking. So that's why I'm specifically looking at the paladin. Yeah. Look, if someone's silly enough to and look, actually, we should say this. I was going to say something silly and say if you're silly enough to bring a paladin tank to a raid and, if someone takes me, that's on them. That's a bit unfair because I also think with all these changes that are coming into Molten Core, we've got fucking Adzapalooza. Yeah, you're going to need tanks. That. You really think guilds are going to be like, oh, sorry, no paladins. They'll fucking take any tank they can get, right?
True.
I think. I don't know enough about what's going to happen, but I know there's a lot more ads, right? So I think they're great ad tanks. That's what they're used for in TBC, and they're absolutely amazing in TBC. But that's what we have our Broad Paladin do is he tanks ads most of the time. So it's Yeah.
Another interesting thing that people haven't talked about is that the later itemization actually adds a lot of items with armor for druid tanks as well as the idols.
Ooh.
So I could see a world early on where, I haven't done any theory crafting or anything. This would probably be more in Tal'Dril's vein, but having all that itemization earlier, I think it definitely increases the viability of druid tanks.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, Geordyn, you're back with us, man. What do you got for us?
Yeah. Oh, I just wanted to jump in on kind of all of this. I played a druid as my main in Classic, and I tanked quite a bit of MC our first couple of weeks because our warriors weren't geared up enough, and it was actually pretty easy to get stuff as a druid and off tank a lot. And then I played a paladin in TBC, and I gotta say, man, you're right that I don't think they're, the raid tank by any means, but I think people are going to be a lot more willing to trust the Paladin tanks after coming off 6 months of having them be the best tank in TBC. I think you're going to do great in dungeons and trash in raids. And you're right. If bringing a buff is enough to get one in there, especially I'm looking at this set where it says, chance on a melee attack to increase your damage and healing by 95 for 10 seconds. I haven't played on the test room, so I don't know how melee unfriendly it is. I know you guys have been talking about that, but if you have a prot that can tank trash and get in there for other fights and heal, proccing this 95 damage and healing from a 4-piece on this Soulforge armor, I think you could probably pretty easily swap gear around and make that kind of work as a off healer trash tank role.
Procs a lot too, Geordyn. It procs a lot. Yeah.
That sounds sick. And then finally, I guess the other thing you guys haven't really been focusing on all this gear has great stam and int and crit and stuff on it. I think it's going to be really good for PvP.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, Defcamp has actually said that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's I don't know, it's interesting. It's really cool. I think it's cool that they're. Yeah, I'm looking at this shaman set, man. That's a pretty damn good Ellie set. Holy shit!
I told you.
Oh, he's back, baby. He's back.
I told you, Melderon. I said, look at the 0.5 shaman set and tell me that's not amazing for Ellie.
Just when I thought I was out, they pulled me back in.
Especially early Ellie, Melderon. Imagine having that early on.
Chance of spell kicks to increase your damage healing by 95 for 10 seconds.
I know, dude. And I've been messing around with this set, Melderon, on the beta. It procs a fuck ton, dude.
That's half a talisman, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And honestly, Melderon, it's I don't know if it's just me, but it feels like it procs it says 4%. Yeah.
Listening to all this chat.
Every spell you have.
Yeah.
Right? Everything.
Listening to all this chat, I've got fucking half a talisman right now. You guys are killing it. This is brilliant. That's really exciting stuff. I love it. But I mean, we'll get to the PvP stuff, sure. But guys, it's good to know that the theory crafting is very much so up in the air. And look, just on the Paladin, I'm really actually excited to play my Paladin. Even though my Hunter will be my main, I am going to spend a fair bit of time on the Paladin as well. I did the backflipping thing that I always do, as Ayle knows. I'm famous for just fucking changing my mind every 3 seconds in regards to classes that I'll play in WoW. But I'm just going to play everything again. Basically, I'm going to roll it back. Yeah. I'm a man of indecision. When people say, "Oh, so what class do you play in WoW?" I just go, "Yes." Fucking play all of them. Exactly. Look, guys, very briefly, and Geordyn, thank you so much for jumping in again, guys. I should really just quickly say, if you want to jump in and interact with us. If you've got questions for the guys, if they've said something that has piqued your interest, if you think they got something right, if you think they got something wrong and you want to have your say, guys, you can jump in just like Geordyn did. It's really easy. I'll throw the link in the Twitch chat again. All you guys in the down hall as we speak, please don't be shy. Raise your hand if you want to say something. The guys have to meet listeners and we'll get talking to you. But guys, until then, moving on to idols, Librams, Totems, Librams, I'm a fucking idiot. Librams. I don't know, is it Librams or Librams? I don't know, potato.
I know it's Librams. I don't know.
Okay. Ayle touched on this earlier. How huge is this? I know fuck all about it because I really haven't played a druid, paladin, or shaman before. I've paid no attention to them. Tell me how this is a bit of a game changer.
For the hybrid classes, it's huge because that's basically a wasted slot. This adds so much for them. There's Pharaoh Librams, there's Boomkin, Librams. I know they're not Librams; they're called something relics or some shit.
Mm-hmm.
Same with Paladin. There's like a tanking Paladin one. There's one for Ayle. It really helps round out the hybrid specs and gives them a little something that the other classes don't get. It's honestly, it's a great. This is kind of as I said before, the itemization changes that they have in. It's kind of a balancing to have it added this early, because having this in right from the beginning is a huge boon, to all the classes that can use them.
It's like having a third trinket, for all those classes, like having almost more than like a third trinket, if not better than that,
Yeah, it's coming from someone who was using Egan's blaster in that slot until AQ. It's really nice to have like the Ellie one super strong.
It's like 100 really more damage 40 more damage to lightning
bolt,
like that.
Yeah, and then there's the shock one's good too, and then there's the healing ones, of course. But
Guys, I've got a question for you. It's maybe time now to bring up the PvP stuff, and if people aren't aware, basically what's happening is the PvP, the track to 14 is just getting put on steroids. Everything is happening twice as fast. People are saying that you could, if you sweated it out like rank 14 rankers did in Classic, you'd now get there in about 6 weeks. Please do correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but that's what people are throwing out there. So everything is just go, go, go. Now, the one caveat with that people have been asking questions about is there's some very, very powerful PvP gear that is attached to the PvP system in Classic. Now we have that gear being introduced very early yet again. Now, it's not exactly easy to get this gear, but for the people that do decide to do it, they will be getting it very early. So now we have DM, tier 0.5, and PvP gear right up there towards the beginning of the game. This, I threw out a tweet recently that actually questioned this to the devs, going like, look, is there a couple of those PvP pieces we maybe want to time gate a little bit? I'm not sure. I'm not a PvP guy. Happy to be shouted down on this one. My question for you guys would be, it's interesting that the PvP stuff is getting introduced early with seemingly no limits whatsoever. But I do wonder why things are being held back, like the Titanic leggings, for example, when it seems they've gone, whether that's a reputation thing or whatever, I'm not sure how you get Titanic leggings, but it feels like they've said, oh no, Titanic leggings, they're a little bit too powerful for that phase. Oh, but the PvP stuff, that can come in.
I got 2 words for you.
Yeah.
Loot abundance. Scarcity. It's if your mindset is the same as it was, where the only things you can get and use are from raids, you're wrong. It's everywhere now. It's PvP gear. It's the buff loot. It's the tier 0.5 set. It's not all just going to be from raids. It's spread out all over. That's what it's going to be, and that's what it should be.
It's a great point, Ayle.
It's funny. Yeah. So sorry, Dev, I'll throw it to you, but I'll just say this. It's funny you say that, Ayle, because we just came from TBC where people did seem to complain that there wasn't much to do in phase 1. The opposite seems to be the case, Defcamp, with Season of Mastery. Is that the case?
Yeah, so Melderon and I were literally talking about this the other day about, like, is it going to be enough loot to keep people engaged? Because, the seasons, obviously, from phase to phase is going to be a lot quicker. And, there were people who went all of Classic WoW who did MC every week and never got Onslaught Girdle, right? But when you have so much other things available at the same time, when you have, PvP sets, which are going to be easier to get because you're going to be ranking quicker. When you have the Dungeon 0.5 sets, you have gear, that might not be as good as some of the pieces that are available in Raid, but you still have pieces that you can get that will replace, Dungeon Blues and other things like that. So
you have options.
You have options, and certain classes do really well with PvP gear. Thinking of like Shadow Priest, right? The PvP gear available is amazing for Shadow Priest. For other classes, it's amazing, right? To have that, even just the blue PvP gear, right off the gate. High stam, which is great for, encounters where there's going to be a lot of damage, especially when, look, some of the best things to have against encounters where you don't know might be happening in terms of new mechanics. The best thing to do is to have a lot of stam, right? So in case there's a lot of AoE damage, you have, especially as Alliance, you have Kings, this and other. I think, having different gear sets too for, if you're afraid to go into a fight where there's going to be a lot of damage, you can swap on a PvP set. You can put more stam gear on. And like we said before, that dungeon 0.5 set has a lot of stam, has a lot of stats on there. And I think after talking to Melderon and listening to you guys, I think this is the answer of that that raid scarcity loot problem that I was worrying about. So I think this is the answer.
It's the answer for now, but what's going to happen later?
Yeah, true.
It's that AQ Nax window where people will be stressing, I presume.
Yeah.
Again, whatever. I mean, it's probably fine, but I'm just like a little worried about that. But the PvP gear is. I mean, Al can tell you how powerful the warrior stuff is. My God, it's.
Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty much all you wanted to wear for raiding, just because it was so good for so much stamina, and obviously it's great in PvP as well. It has good DPS stats. The warrior set's great. Like every warrior is probably going to be trying to go rank 10 if they have the time, at least, if not higher.
Guys, we'll shift over to what was the first big announcement of the day that I saw as I was lying awake in bed at 3:00 in the morning. The one that made me a very happy chappy, that I sort of made my, it's a funny thing when people talk about, and I'm very critical of content creators, sort of pushing agendas, so to speak, when they want something more for themselves as an individual, as opposed to what might be good for the game. And so I'm always very wary about approaching Blizzard and asking for something. I don't know the game well enough. I don't feel qualified to fucking approach a developer and go like, actually, you should change this to this. And they're like, yeah, okay, thanks, dipshit. I was very passionate though about this Black Lotus thing. And I just felt that if I've got one thing over you nerds, I am a gatherer through and through. I love herbalism. I do hours of herbing. I really, really enjoy it. I'm so bizarre in the way my mind is wired, and I'm a piece of candy guy. I go up and pick up everything. It's a lot of fun. So I was passionate about this one, going like, look, why not get the endorphins flowing for all the herbalists, give them a bit more of a chance of hitting a Black Lotus. Don't just leave it open to the fly hacking bots, and or the people with 900 characters sitting there and camping camping spawn spots. The community seems to want this. Let's do it. And I'm really glad they actually fucking did it. But it wasn't the only thing they changed. They also said that, guess what? We're going to give you a bit more Plague Bloom as well. And this seems to flow that the logic will be, let's get more consumables in the hands of the players, which I find really interesting, because they also then handcuffed it to, guess what? Bonus time, more elemental fire, more elemental earth, more elemental water. I think it's fantastic. It seems to be really well received. So, Melderon, I'll get you to start and we'll go down the chain. Tell me what you think of this.
It's big. I mean, it's big for not just getting consumables in people's hands. It's big to combat farmers, too. Like, if you went into Karga, like if you're in the Badlands, I used to steal elemental earths from farmers because they're so terrible at playing the games. And I would just go in there and, like, just take all their kills. And but, like, these are heavily farmed things, right? And it kind of set the economy. Black Lotus, number one of those things. Like, the Black Lotus, there was a friggin' mafia, right? Like, you had guilds that had these things on lockdown. They had people standing at the spawn points. It sucked. It felt like shit, and it's like, so I would try to combat these things as much as I can, farm my own things. And now that it's going to be so abundant, a lot of these, let's face it, undesirables, that's what I would call them. They're people that kind of just like hold the server at ransom. They're going to have a lot less power. So that's big. And I think that, making consumables cheap, you might not make as much as if you're an alchemist, but, because I used to flip potions. That's how I made most of my gold. I had TSM. I would buy herbs, flip them into potions, make profit. I would stand in Orgrimmar and make money, You're still going to be able to do that, but not to the extent. And that's good. I think it's like you said, the world interaction is so much more important than kind of just sitting around. So I think it's like just having more nodes in general, having more access to these will mean the consumables will be easier to come by. And that's good because they didn't go with the TBC system of consumables. They went with the old school version, which means you could pop everything. Right? So...
Right.
Yeah.
One thing I really, Defcamp, I'll throw it to you next, but just to say, one thing I really would have liked, because Melderon, you mentioned the fact that they told us, I think it was a couple of weeks ago now, that there will just be more herb nodes and mining nodes in general. When I initially read that, I thought they meant that they were going to create more nodes, but it seems to be the case, and tell me if I'm wrong, guys, that no new nodes have been created. They're just maybe respawning faster so that there's more availability of picking, because I went through a bunch of zones and I never saw a node pop up on my map with my gatherer add-on that wasn't in a known place.
Yeah, so I think there's multiple ways to actually increase the amount of, like you said, Josh, the one way would be just change the amount of nodes. Another way to do it is to increase the limit of the amount of nodes that can exist. So, correct me if I'm wrong, Ayle, you might know this. There's like this, it's either 6 or 7, right? They can only exist of a certain herb in a zone at one time.
Right.
And if you increase that cap, that's one way of increasing nodes. So you don't have to make new nodes, you just have to increase the cap of how many nodes can be up at a time. Yeah, which is what I think they're going to do. Yeah,
that was the interesting thing that I discovered by doing a lot of herbalism, is that nodes are on. They're like herbs are in groups basically, and there can only be so much in that group up at the same time, and they'll be shared across different herbs. So I noticed this big time when I was farming in the zone with Sunken Temple, because there was one herb that was really popular that everybody would pick, and nobody would pick the other one. And eventually it would like Darwin itself to it. There was only one type of herb in the zone, because it had like a 50% chance to spawn. Everybody's picking the only one. And then over time, eventually it's only that one. It actually works the same with mob spawns. And that I found that people would run there, they'd run around, they wouldn't pick any of the herbs. They'd be like, oh, none of the herbs are spawned. I would pick the herbs that people didn't want, and
to force the others to spawn.
Yeah. Which was really interesting.
Just like the bears and the
bears and the wolves
and the bear, in certain zones. Yeah. I think it's really interesting because the fact of the matter is that without world buffs, consumables are going to be so much more important. Consumables are going to be the world buffs of SOM, so to speak, right? So I really think this was absolutely necessary, and I'm really glad that and Josh, I know what you're saying, how you felt kind of weird, but I'm really glad that there are people out there like you, like Melderon, like Ayle, that put these things out there not for their own selfish reasons, but for what they think is better for the game, right? And I think it's important to do that when you make a point like this. It's think about, okay, yes, this is going to absolutely change my interaction with the game, but it's going to change other people's interaction with the game, hopefully for the better, right? So I think thank you for doing that, but I think this was something that was absolutely necessary.
I just had a wild idea. I'll bring it up at the end. Just don't let me forget.
All right. Okay. We should all get in a room together and get really drunk and party. Was that the idea?
Oh yeah.
Sorry, Def. Keep going.
No. I just think that like in terms of with the fact of that they're bringing out more spawn, right? And like you said, the thing with the not just the Black Lotus, but with elemental water, elemental fire. When it comes for everything, I think is going to have to be a little bit more accessible, just because people are it's going to be less time spent, farming stuff, because content's going to be coming out quicker. I think it's just a necessary thing that has to be done when you're looking at progressing and quickening the content. If they weren't to do this, it would just get to the point where it would frustrate people and make people, another reason for them to maybe not want to play. So I think they're addressing things that are the right things to address in order to make people not get frustrated over the little things, over the stupid things, like getting Black Lotus, like getting these other things that shouldn't embody the game. It should be the gameplay. It should be the community, not these little things. And of course, other things that people can manipulate that are, like Melderon said, in these offices and things like that. So they're kind of circumventing that in a lot of ways, which I think is great.
You know what's really great, and Josh brought this up the other day, speaking about like the economy, is that by them releasing all these changes like this, it actually is a huge shuffle in the economy as well, because the tier 0.5 sets require you to have, max level
gold, right.
tailoring for Mooncloth, the, what's the rugged leather, whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, you're talking about because it needs.
Yeah.
No, I was actually going to bring this up, Ayle. I'm glad you did. I was like, a part of me was like, should I not say something on the show? But it's not like people aren't going to fucking work it out. Tito and I were talking about this in the Discord the other day, going the rugged leather or the enchanted leather market. Like this changes everything for professions with tier 0.5 being available so early. Because now I'm staring at fucking leatherworking and enchanting. I've completely scrapped my professions ideas, and now I'm like, fuck. What about this one? What about that one? That enchanted leather market is going to be bonkers, surely.
Yeah.
Good point.
Absolutely.
And that's totally different as well. So the people, are expecting to go in and, make a shit ton of money from elemental earth or things like that. It's going to be different. Black Lotus, same thing. Like, being in the, the power guild I was in, we would have often a raid of people in a zone when we knew the spawn was coming up to get that Lotus. It was so important, right? And to have that, be less of an issue now because it can just drop anywhere, like it's shaking the whole economy up, which is good. They've basically looked at, itemization, gameplay, itemization, economy, and rating, and they've just like shook it all up. It's going to be totally new meta, and the people who are going in expecting the old one are going to be just blown out of the water.
I love it. Let me just take this moment to interrupt the podcast and just shout out my wife, who's the greatest woman in the world, who just came in and brought me a beer during the recording, which I cheekily I said, Am I pushing? Are you going to leave me if I ask for a beer? And she just
no
went
jumbo hot dog.
And no jumbo hot dog. Can you believe it? But I've got a cold, fresh one here with me, guys. So I'm ready to kick on. Look, the last thing I'll just say about the herbalism point, as Defcamp was saying, I've said this so many times on the show over the years, where it's just like, my desire to break the meta. Have it plastered on the walls in the office at Irvine. And even if it's something little, and we're already getting all these little things adding up, and I think it's great that Ayle brings that point up, that like, if you think you know vanilla, you won't necessarily know Season of Mastery. Just with the herbs, it's such a little thing, but I mean, don't get me wrong, guys. I love loading up my add-on too with all the information there so I can just filter out what herb I'm looking for and follow the route. That's great. I love being a little bit of a cheaty McCheaterson, and doing that. But I would not be bent out of shape, and I would welcome it if we bring back some element of discovery and just introduced new nodes so that like you spot a herb and you're like, hang on, that's not on my fucking map. What's going on here? And all of a sudden you might change your path because you're like, I need to like not miss anything. I have to go out into the wilds where the add-on is saying there's nothing and see if there's something there now. I just thought it'd be a bit of fun. It's obviously not happening. Maybe in future seasons we shall see. I know you can't move necessarily nodes that are already in existence because they were planned in their placement. High level mobs congregate here, so we will put a high value herb here. That makes sense.
Right.
But if we're creating if we're increasing the abundance of herbs, then I think it does give some leeway in popping them in random spots around the world. But anyway, that's my little rant. Let's move on. Hey guys, what's the deal with the Templars and the Dukes in Silithus that fucking people will not shut the fuck up about?
What's the deal? Wait a second. Let me read this. Oh, you mean the dudes? You can summon those guys?
You need them for the tier 0.5 quest. I don't know how they're going to accomplish this if it's been up on the thing yet, because I know there is some reputation required, but they did say that it's going to be locked out till later. I don't know if that's just the rewards that are locked out, but you can still farm like techs and...
Didn't that not come out till the AQ pre-patch though?
Yeah.
So how's that going to work?
That's kind of what I want to know. Like, kind of interesting. Like, if you can, like, they're either going to have to allow you to summon them without rep, or you're going to be able to get rep, which means you're going to get a head start on that rep going into it later. As far as I know, it's not like there isn't a beta with these changes up yet, so I really don't know.
Right,
That's
because
something
they
that we're
gave
probably
rep,
gonna have to.
because they gave rep on kill, so that's something they'd have to
Yes.
turn off.
That's something.
But
we're
wait
gonna
a second,
have to-
wait a second. Yeah, so they can easily do that because the non-elites, Ayle, like the humanoids that were in Silithus, when you killed them prior to AQ, they didn't give rep, right?
No, they didn't.
So I guess you just turn it off.
Yeah,
Turn it
but
back
then
on.
how do you summon them for your tier 0.5 quest? Because
They'll
those are
drop-
locked.
Oh,
Yeah, but you need to have a certain rep to turn in to get the
the quest.
to get-
right.
like you turn in 3 of the bijoux to get the bigger bijou, right? With
Mhm.
a large prismatic or whatever.
Yeah, no,
Large
you're right.
brilliant,
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah. Now I remember. Okay.
So,
Yeah.
so they're either going to have to do something special with that, or you're going to be able to farm rep earlier. I hope they've thought of this
Yeah.
because they're going to have to do something because it doesn't match up. I think you'll be able to farm rep early if I were to think about it, because I don't see how they would you either have to have rep or they have to make them repless.
Mm-hmm.
Hey guys, we've just had a wild Duranasaur appear. Hey man, how are you?
Oh,
hello.
Hello.
Hi, everybody.
What's going on, man?
I love it. It's
I'm
like
chilling.
Cheers. People are just dropping in. It's beautiful,
Straight
man.
from the Jurassic era.
Everybody knows your name.
How are you, man?
I'm good, dude. I'm good. I just had a long, hardcore session on Classic Era. Just prepping.
Nice.
Just having a good
Yeah,
time.
you did. Yeah, you did.
Hell
Tell us
yeah.
about it.
I had a hunter that was just in the high 40s, and I've been doing all this like practice on the beta, like 1 to 10, 1 to 20, and I was like, I just don't want to do that again. So I was like, I'm just going to practice some high 40s content. So I'm just
Fair
messing
enough.
around. Might
Yeah.
try to finish it before SoM comes out. We'll see.
I'm
and I
with
are
you.
practicing some duo stuff as well. So
Nice. Hey, can I say, Defcamp
Yeah.
and Melderon, your fucking duo streams, the best. Like, if you guys listening at home, if you've never seen Melderon and Defcamp when they stream together, just leveling together,
Yeah,
they're
you
the
know what's
fucking
funny?
best.
Yeah, there's a stream reward, real quick, Dennis. There's a stream reward he has on there. It's 150,000 Snapple caps or whatever to aggravate Melderon. And I'm like, you aggravate me all fucking day. How are you going to make it? Sorry,
He's got to have something up the sleeve, right?
Yeah,
He's got
yeah.
like the
Yeah.
one thing ready to go.
Yeah.
Oh, very good. I'm with you, Duranasaur, though, because I mean, I'd say to people as well, if you don't, I'm excited for Season of Mastery when for the first time in my life, I have done several practice runs to like level 15. I've done it like 3 times now. I'm so fucking pumped. I'm all out nerding this one up, figuring out routes and everything, and just, I love it. But Durana, sorry, I interrupted the guys and Ayle and everyone in between their epic points on what's happening in Silithus with the Templars and the Dukes. Durana, were you listening in on that one?
A little bit, yeah.
Anything with the guys piquing your interest with that one?
Well, like, so one thing I did that I caught my ear, I guess you could say, is like you were able to farm CC rep as early as phase 1. It was just that it was like 1 rep per kill, and that was like that was it. That was the only way you could farm it, and it was like
Right.
In the cave.
there were.
right?
I think it was any of the mobs at the camps, because I remember going down there in phase 1 with a group of people, because you could do it in a party. If like a mob got killed by anyone in your party, you'd get the rep. In a raid, like you had to tag it. So
it's
we
just
would
like
go down,
getting to 60 by killing just boars.
basically. And it was like, okay, how far do we want to take this? Like, do we
Yeah.
want to kill like 9,000 mobs to try to be like at the cap of friendly before CC stuff comes out?
no,
yeah,
I hope
I'm-
it's not.
Yeah, it'll be super interesting to see, because I'm like, they said they're putting all that stuff in because it's tied to the 0.5 quest chain, but like, yeah, so many of those quests are intertwined in such a way that it's like, how much of the CC stuff do they have to put in to make it doable?
Yeah. That's weird. I don't know, man. Like that's. I mean, because that. Thank you for saying that, because I do remember killing those guys in Silithus before, and they did drop like 1 rep. It's just 1 rep, right, for killing
Yeah.
those.
Yeah.
But like Ayle said, you got to do all that other shit to get summon those mobs. So I don't know. Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. I don't know. They got to.
I would like them to release something on the PTR just so we can test it out and see what it is, and if it actually works. Because, I mean, they wouldn't have, forgotten about this, right?
I hope not.
Yeah.
No, they've done a really good job so far. I'm sure. I doubt they overlooked that.
They've done a great job, and I'll just take this opportunity to say I haven't brought this up yet, sort of by choice, but on the podcast we have been flogging this sort of company line of commending Blizzard for everything they've been doing with Season of Mastery. I'll say it again, guys. This news has been so ridiculously well received. Everyone is high-fiving the project now. I'm not going to bog us down and have us kiss Blizzard's ass for 10 minutes, but I think an ass kissing is still something that should be done to a certain extent, and just say it really is such great cognizance of what the community wants, really. And yesterday it blew me away again with wow, they're really going for the home run on this one, and they're fucking getting pretty close to it. It doesn't have to be perfect. If there are problems with this server, that's fine. It's the attitude that I think is fantastic to see. But guys, we'll move on. I want to ask about the level 50 class quests. Now, I think Ayle gave me a little bit of deserved stick over me not really knowing what the level 50 class quests were. I said, what the fuck is a level 50 class quest? And I didn't know about, that. I thought Diamond Flask was a drop. I don't know.
That's the one that really matters, right? I'm just joking.
Yeah.
Come on.
Who's got much to say about them bringing this one in at the outset?
They never fixed this, right? So the Diamond Flask will still operate the way it did in regular vanilla?
No, they changed it. They added.
They did fix it. Okay.
Are you saying that it doesn't snapshot healing anymore? Is that what you're saying, Ayle?
Yep.
Yeah, they changed it.
That is dead. Warriors do not get healing gear anymore.
So then do we care about Diamond Flask?
Yes, Diamond Flask is insane.
Okay.
Yeah,
I just care about my anal beads.
Trinket. Every warrior is going to use it until Nax or something. It's a minute long of 150 AP. It's insane.
So they've completely fixed the healing thing because that was OP. That was ridiculously OP.
Yeah, and it was interesting emergent gameplay for some. I mean, I was a warrior, so obviously I liked it. It was very cool to farm dungeons and stuff with that. But I understand. That's
I just loved
clearly not intended.
I just loved rolling against warriors against my healing gear. It was great.
No, we never gave them before the healers. Come on,
in Pugs they did.
Yeah, true. I mean, let's go back and think about this. Are any of them actually? So, Enamored Water Totem is really good for Shaman.
Oh, my anal beads are amazing too.
True.
I'm sorry. I just call it.
What about the trinket?
What about your class quest stuff though?
Yeah, that's the Enamored Water. I got it. I got the joke.
Can you explain what the trinket is? Defcamp?
Oh, mine? Yeah, so it's basically if anyone knows,
Sorry, I'm giving you a very delayed reaction to Duranasaur's joke.
So it's an amazing on-use healing trinket, right? So healing trinkets are kind of, there's some really good ones, right, available, but this is just an amazing, I think it's a 200, let me pull it up real quick.
Increases healing by spells and effects by 190 for 20
190,
seconds.
there you go.
2 minute cooldown.
2 minute cooldown. That right there, absolutely amazing. So, you get that and you can pair it up with something like the Second Wind from BRD, 2 great amazing trinkets to use. It's a really great trinket to get early on. Every priest should have it. You could swap this with other trinkets. So that's what I do. So if you use this for your 2 minute cooldown, pop it on. It lasts for, I think, 20 seconds, right? For 20 seconds, like I said. That's a good amount of time. And it's only a 2 minute cooldown. Amazing trinket. Every priest definitely wants to go out and get your beads.
Yeah,
so does this stuff, what does it outrank? When we're talking about MC gear and everything, this level 50 class stuff, like the beads, for example, I guess you just look at it, but that's better than TOEP, isn't it? No, wait. What's TOEP?
Well, you got to be really careful with these things because, a lot of them, for a lot of these quests, it's usually gear that will be outpaced at some point, and then there's usually a piece that's not. Diamond Flask would be the piece, right? It does get outplaced, but not till way later. So with these quests, you only have one chance to do them. I wouldn't waste it on a piece of gear you're going to replace an MC.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or something.
It's also important because with like trinkets in particular, like Defcamp could pop that and then like on a boss fight or trash or something, and he could swap to another trinket and have that trinket become active and use it while the beads are like on CD. Exactly. So just having the utility of extra trinkets is a huge thing.
That's a big point, especially with a lot of these. I think all of them might reward a trinket. I'm not 100% sure on that.
I don't think Rogue's get a trinket.
Yeah, most of them have a trinket, and they're going to be at least pre-BIS, if not BIS, for a lot of classes.
Yeah, the Devil Saw Eye for Hunters, Durana, right?
Yeah, and that is one. Yeah, that's one where I don't think you replace that until you get like Earth Strike from the CC ref, which is ironic because that's what we were just talking about. But theoretically that would be like pre-AQ40. You would replace that trinket. And even then, same sort of thing, right? Like you could swap between the two of those, like during trash or something, still get a ton of utility.
Wow. And I'm sorry, but I got to bring this up. When we're talking about DM, totally forgot to bring up the DM trinkets. So the Royal Seal of Eldrathos is the priest trinket. So you could potentially pair up the Royal Seal, which is it gives like healing and I think it's like 30 something healing or 40 something healing like all the time, right? So you could pair that up with Second Wind and then swap out like second, so you definitely want to get the DM trinkets are great for certain classes. I think they're really good for shamans, for priests, and for other classes. And then so you'll have your beads, you have your Royal Seal from DM, and then you'll have your other trinkets as well. So very, very important as well. Don't forget those trinkets for DM.
Yeah, so I just confirmed the classes that get screwed are rogues and druids.
With the level 50s, yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. I think mage might also be screwed too. Let me see.
Let's have a look.
Their trinket's a fire trinket, which is not great.
Right.
But I think the neck might have plus hit on it.
No, just damage and healing by 16.
Yeah, and 6 intellect, that's it.
Yeah.
Man, one of the saddest things is when you see a warrior that took something other than Diamond Flask.
Yeah.
Because it's a trap, right? Like if you don't really understand how good Diamond Flask is, some of those other pieces that are rewards for warrior look really, really good.
And they are pretty decent. Like I think at least at the level you can get them, they're insane. And even going into raiding, like they are very good pieces. It's just like you said, the trinkets. I believe the trinkets from them most often will just last a lot longer than anything else.
Question for the crowd, even though on the face of it, it doesn't seem that amazing. If we are now in slightly more prolonged fights, just regarding that mage level 50 class quest, I'm looking at the Glacial Spike, and again, dickhead Josh, who barely knows anything about WoW Classic, goes, 6% chance to restore 50 mana when you cast a Frostbolt. If fights are longer, wouldn't that be kind of valuable? But I know mages don't have mana issues anyway, for the most part, but now we're adding, 60 to 90 seconds to a fight. Wouldn't that be like something you'd consider? Ayle? I don't know.
Nah, it's
extremely early on.
Pretty
maybe,
shit,
but
yeah.
It's
the only thing that does is it actually gains you mana when you cast rank 1 Frostbolt.
Oh, that's
because rank 1's 25. So if you just if you're talented in that, you have a 1 second, rank 1 Frostbolt, you can spam that to give yourself 25 mana every 1.5 seconds or whatever.
Soul Harvester for Warlocks is a good one. Sorry, go Durana.
I was just gonna say 6%. That's 1 out of every 20-ish Frostbolts you might get the proc. So then it's depending on what your other options are, it might just be a DPS loss because the amount of mana isn't enough.
The Warlock ones aren't great either, to be honest.
You know what the best part is, though, of just hearing you guys kick around ideas about all of this stuff is, and again, we've already lightly touched on it, but just to really hammer it home, how good does it feel already? We haven't started fucking playing the game to be able to sit here and wonder and go, if I combine this with that, then maybe we'll get this. Oh, no, I've got an even better idea. What about this one and that one? And none of these conversations were had coming into Classic because it was all done, worked out. I think Blizzard's, sort of unspoken MO, even though they've gone through what they want with this server in their design philosophies, the unspoken MO here is really make this feel like vanilla again. Yes, we'll never get that vanilla, that true identical 1-to-1 vanilla feeling back, but let's get as close as fucking possible. And I am already getting that vibe listening to you guys talk about this shit.
I think that's the coolest part about this, right? It's like it's the unknown, and I think when like I said this earlier, right? One of the biggest reasons I think why, I mean, Josh, I came on here and said so many times how TBC this, TBC is better than Classic, and I still think TBC is better, like on paper, as a like content wise, but I find myself always having more fun in Classic, and it's because of those little things that like the things that you find out every day, the new, and with this now, knowing that there's going to be new things to explore, new things to find out, and the fact that the world is just so much bigger and there's so many more possibilities for shit to happen, I just find myself like always dreaming about fucking coming back to Classic.
This is funny because way back in the day when we were pirates on private servers, Defcamp would always play TBC private servers, and I'm like, dude, you're missing the boat. You should play on a vanilla private server. And he's like, I understand my TBC ones, blah, 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 blah. And then he finally came over, and he's like, wow, this is really fun. I was like, told you, dude. Told you. Yeah, but he was definitely a TBC.
I started playing Vanilla WoW like really, really late into Vanilla, and I was such a noob that I never really experienced all of Vanilla WoW until Classic, and until private servers. So, and I find myself just missing it, man.
Defcamp, if I can put you sort of on the spot for just a minute here, and I'm really, this is a huge tangent, guys, so we'll come back to obviously Season of Mastery in a second, but if I were to make you sweat a little bit here, Def, I am expecting a TBC Season of Mastery after this, right? I think I will not be shocked in the slightest. I think it's absolutely coming. TBC lost me early on as well, where I was expecting more and it just didn't quite float my boat. And you, who are the biggest TBC stan of all time, you have fallen by the wayside as well. And I'm putting the cart way before the horse here because we're just living in the now and talking about this current Season of Mastery. But if we have a bit of fun, and they get wacky with changes for TBC Season of Mastery, what would you change?
Oh man, that's a great question. I think one thing that I would really like to see, and this is, when I originally played TBC, it was very much of a new world for me in a lot of ways because I was still relatively new to WoW. But I mean, all in all, when I look back at what makes Classic so good, what makes it so amazing is the fact that, like, I think a big reason why I've had not as much as a good time as I thought I would was because of the health of my server and because of how small the world feels, right? And I think you know where I'm going with this. And I've always been against this idea, but maybe in a season in TBC, this could be possible, where somehow world flying mounts weren't a thing, and maybe the world itself was bigger in some kind of way, because I think
Team Elevator, Josh.
I didn't want to say it. I didn't want to say it.
I can't believe I'm saying this, but I come back to thinking that one of the best things about WoW is the journey, is going from one place to another and the random shit that happens in between, running into people, saying hi, helping someone with a quest, all this kind of random shit that happens. Those are where the possibilities exist, and that's where the fun really exists. And, obviously the risk and reward is great as well, but I don't know, man. I think one thing that TBC really lacks in is the adventure, right? It's the adventure part of the game, and I feel like Classic WoW does that so fucking well, man. Whether you're doing a 5-man dungeon, the dungeons in TBC have such more of a rigid straight line feel. They're great fun, mechanic wise, this and the other. But the dungeon in Classic WoW, you can really go look around and say, wow, look how beautiful this is. Look how cool this is. It's so abstract. It's so much different. So maybe something along that vein. I'm not saying exactly to do that, but maybe somehow make the world feel bigger in some kind of way. I don't know.
Mel, let me say this one thing. You start up, Mel, but let me say this. Melderon, I think what you were getting at when you spoke up before was I'm going to do it for you. I'm going to string together the 3 hardest words to place side by side in the English language. North was right.
So I actually have a really different take on this, and I'm going to disagree with you, Josh, here. I don't think they're going to do a Season of Mastery in TBC.
Okay, all right.
Because it's too perfect. And I know that sounds weird. Let me finish that thought, but that's also its fault.
Yes.
I think TBC is a perfect game, as close to perfection as you can get to. But that in lies the problem. It's too hyper efficient in every possible way. Like you have no room for sandboxiness or randomness. Mm-hmm. It feels almost sterile. Yeah. And I think vanilla is not sterile, and that's why people love it. And I think that the reason you could never do a Season of Mastery for TBC is that how can you improve upon? The only way you can improve upon TBC is by breaking it. And I don't know if there's any developer in the world that can break it. You know, that's and I'll just say, like, I love my experience with TBC has been really good, but like Defcamp, I agree with Defcamp, but I agree with it in maybe a different way. I think that Classic is great because of it's not perfect, and I think Classic is beautiful because it's not balanced, and the world is so big and almost unbearable to some people. You know, it's so big. Whereas TBC is so compact, so efficient, so clean. It's that Maserati, it's that Lamborghini, it's that Ferrari. But that's not what people want in an MMO experience. They want the dirty old Mustang, and that's what Classic is. Yeah. So
with
that's
stains on the back seat.
Yeah, that's why I think they'll never touch TBC ever again. It's too sterile.
Fair enough. All right, guys. Well, very well said, Mel. I will shift gears a little bit here in the Mustang. And, guys, let's go to the fact that we did get told, look, I've kind of left this one almost to the end when it's one of the bigger points. In the tweet I sent out there the other day, I did mention something that a lot of the community has been asking for, and that is a little bit of an assistance, an aiding hand being thrown the way of the meme classes in Season of Mastery. And people have expressed concern for fight length versus mana pools and whatnot. But, and also, not only that, if you are a subpar damage dealer, how you will be viewed by the community if content is harder. And I've said this, is it creating a situation where they'll be ostracized even further than they were originally? Blizzard's come out and addressed this, and I actually really respect the reasoning and the wording behind what they said. The only thing I raised a concern about was mana pools. I actually wasn't asking for huge class changes. I was just like, is there just something you can do to give them a bit more mana? That's it. That's all I really think is necessary. But they've come out and said, look, there will be no class changes whatsoever for Season of Mastery. And I completely understand why. Once, I'm trying to think, it's the House of Cards. Once you move one card, the whole thing could fall apart.
Yeah.
And there's obviously PvP ramifications to take into account along with rating ramifications. So I respect their decision in that regard. Tell me if you guys were okay with this, and I'll get a take from every single one of you here. Were you okay with this? What did you think of it? Do you agree with it? Go for it. And I'll start with you, Durana.
Yeah. I mean, you know me, Josh. I was an advocate for like pure vanilla, don't change anything. But I like what they're doing because I do think that it is going to be closer to like an original vanilla feel. It's just not, it's obviously a different game, right? It's not quite vanilla as it was. So with the class changes, I think for now it's probably good to keep it the way that it is. And I like the way that they phrased it because they phrased it in such a way that left it open-ended for future seasons, right? There's a chance that for future seasons they do address class changes and things like that. And I think that it's nice now because the feeling that I get from them, and I think what they've kind of tried to express is that they want this to be the season of feels like vanilla. And that unfortunately means that those off specs, those hybrid classes aren't the top tier thing. But that's what it felt like back in the day. So yeah.
I agree with you that there's a chance for class changes in the future, but I would throw in a little bit of a caveat to that statement in that I still feel that even though they wouldn't expressly say this, and I'm not meaning to slight the team. I think the team has been doing an amazing job, but we've said this before that we don't necessarily feel that there's like a class designer on the classic team or anything like that. And it's not been necessary. They're not fucking changing anything. But here we are at a different sort of crossroads moment where if they were to change classes in future seasons, I really think they would go the route of what I've been suggesting is, and look, and Duranasaur, I'm with you. Like, if next season is what Melderon pointed out before, if it's the season of world buffs and speedrunning, I'm here for it. I'll be happy for you guys. I'll play it. But if we eventually get a season that's like, hey, we're going to mix up the classes, I would think they will just do TBC copies of what your class was like in TBC, transplant that to a vanilla world. I think that is the fucking slam dunk of an option, and they don't have to sit down and start to theory craft on how to change classes, because I just think we might be asking a bit much of the classic team if we now go to them and say, hey, design your own class. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, and I think that it's unfortunate that it might just come down to the numbers in terms of like, are they gonna pay to add people to the team that are class designers,
right?
And like, are they gonna put that time and money and effort into it? And to your point, like if they can make these class adjustments in a way that people like by pulling from TBC, that limits the amount of like time and effort and like new thinking that they have to do. So yeah, I think that's a potential.
I've got Axtel. I'll throw it to you in a second, mate. Thanks so much for joining us. I've just got two more quick questions for you before I throw it to the others. On that note, I mean, who the fuck is? Maybe I'm way off on this one, but who the fuck is saying no to the TBC classes in the vanilla world? I think that's really exciting.
It fixes so much. Sorry. Yeah.
No, it's all good. Yeah.
I mean, I think it kind of comes back to the last time I was on here talking about like the people that are really passionate about vanilla. Like they're passionate about that game because they've played that version of it, even if it is outdated and has all those flaws. They like that version because they're able to like continue to sandbox in it. And push it to
sorry, mate. I'm saying within the context of like a tit for tat scenario where like your crowd gets a season, now the other crowd gets a season, now your crowd gets a season. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh man, yeah. I think that if that's, I don't know who would be objecting to that, right? Like, and I think they have like the gift of time really here, right? Like if they're doing these new seasons every year, they can do something different every year and appeal to different people and then get to the point where, just because I only like this one aspect of original vanilla WoW, doesn't mean that I'm not going to try these different seasons because they're going to be different. They're going to have different focuses and maybe that'll draw in a lot of players in the long term. Cause yeah, I think there were people that saw Season of Mastery and they just said, nope, it's not what I want. It's not vanilla. But it's becoming more and more clear that they are truly trying to make the game better in different ways. And if they continue doing that for the upcoming seasons and like explore the different areas and different groups and communities and like, let's give them a shot, let's give the others a shot, then yeah, I think that at the end of the day, it'll probably draw more people to Classic in the long run. Yeah.
Axel just me, he ducked out back into the audience because he just said that Duranasaur virtually verbatim said everything he was about to say. So.
Oh, I'm sorry, dude.
No, good. You're on point, mate. You're on point. Look, now I'll throw it to you other guys, and just say, and by the way, Durana, I'm with you, just so people realize, like, I'm not against the season of world buffs next season. It was a time proximity issue that was my main thing there. But Melderon, I'll throw it over you now, mate, and just ask the same question. In regards to the no class changes and the wording from Blizzard, you cool with it?
Yeah, for this one. I think that it's important that we don't change too many variables at once. It's like, you pop open a car's hood and you're like, I don't know what the problem is. It won't start. I'm going to unhook the battery. I'm going to do this. I'm going to take out this. I'm going to unplug this. I think it's too much to do, right? And let's see how it runs this time, and then we'll go to the next and say, okay, now let's try it with this variable changed. I think that's smart, and I think that it's good to see how we, as the player base, adapt to these changes with the classes as the lens, like they said. And this is Kevin Jordan's baby, right? He designed these classes, and I think he hit his peak in TBC. I think he heard me say that before, but still, I think that it's interesting to see how it is with one variable or two variables changed instead of like 5 or 6.
We'll have to go to Kevin and say Melderon said you peaked too early.
Yeah.
Defcamp, how about you, mate, on the class change stuff?
Yeah, so first thing I want to say is that I think a lot of people they ask for class changes and they only look at one aspect of the game in Classic, and whether it's Classic or SoM, PvE is just 1/4 of the game, I would argue, right? And I am in the camp, and I believe that when you look at every aspect of the game, when you look at leveling, when you look at PvE, and when you look at PvE, I would argue that Classic is pretty well balanced within the classes. Now, of course, some classes are nowhere near as good at leveling, like Warriors early on, but they're amazing at PvE. Then you have classes like Hunters and Druids, which might not be as good at PvE, but are great at leveling and great at some places in PvP. So I think it's really important to look at the game as a whole and not just PvE balancing, especially with Classic WoW, because so much of Classic WoW is not just PvE balancing. It's not just endgame PvE. So that's my first point to that. My second point would be, let's explore this new meta before we mess with it. And I think this is a great chance to do it now. Let this first season of Mastery have the original, templates where the classes were, so that we could kind of explore this new meta and see, hey, is it going to be, better for certain classes, with longer fights? Are range classes going to maybe be a little bit better? Are they going to be a little bit worse? And I think it's important to maybe explore those aspects of each class in this new world where the fights are going to be a little more complex, where the fights are going to be a little bit longer, and then we could use that information into future seasons and say, hey, maybe we should do this one change to this class if fights are a little bit longer. So I think it's really important that we keep this template the way it is now, to explore further things, especially when you're adding things like, more debuff slots. You could argue and say, hey, we already had Classic to explore this, but I think when you're changing the aspects so much like this, I think we should really try to look at the game as a whole, not just PvE and whatnot. So yeah, I'm really all for this. I think it's really important to kind of keep that template the way it is at first, and then I think it would be pretty cool to say, hey, maybe we can mess around. I really like the idea of putting TBC talents in Classic. Some people even say, hey, maybe you can start by putting talents at level 1, so people can get more talents. At level 60, you would have 10 more talent points to play around with the level 60 talent points, things like that. But yeah, I'm all in the camp of, hey, let's try it like this first and let's see where it goes.
Very well said, mate. Ayle, bring us home.
Yeah, no, I sorry. I agree as well. Like,
I was on the edge of my seat.
I mean, I think you've said it. Class changes. I feel like a lot of the itemization is going to change it. A lot of the boss fights is going to change already. No world buffs is also going to change. Yep. So I think letting these see how these pan out would be pretty big. I watched a few of the raids from the testing, and It looks like Warlocks were doing great. I mean, people just had they didn't have their own handpicked gear and stuff like that. So I'm really interested to see that maybe over time there'll be, even new strategies develop where, some classes will be better than the original first time around. Hopefully it doesn't all turn into just like a warrior Zerg again. And I think that'll be good. And I hope the shakeup is enough and that it causes people to look into new avenues. And I think it will.
Well said. All right, guys. Well, that's pretty much all my points I had down. I had a couple of little things to finish up with. Real quick. I mean, you talked about the raids, Ayle. I mean, Onyxia. I know they've sort of been going through a lot of different iterations of this fight to try to get it just right. It seems like it's in a good spot now. It seems like once you know the strat, it's like relatively simple to a certain extent, but still quite different. Have you guys been happy with what you've seen with Onyxia?
That fight scares the shit out of me. From like the hardcore perspective and the idea of like trying that on one life characters, I was scared of Onyxia as she was in like when Classic came out. Right. And then they started doing all of these things. And now I'm like, this is the scariest boss in vanilla WoW.
Threat is definitely like, people, we always talk about how big Threat is in Classic WoW, right? But I think you got to realize now most tanks are going to be pure defensive, right? They're going to be like defensive tanks, my guess at least, without world buffs. And yeah, maybe people are going to be doing less damage, but I still think Threat is going to be extremely, on the line, right? Where you have to be really, really careful. And fights like Onyxia are, like you said, Duranasaur, really, really scary, especially when you look through it a hardcore lens. So yeah, I think it's going to be a challenge. I think I'm really excited to try it as a hardcore player, as a non-hardcore player, and I think they're doing pretty good from what I've seen so far. I do like what I've seen. Yeah.
There was certainly a stage there where it did look like they'd gone a little bit far with Onyxia, didn't it? But I feel like they've hit a good mark right now. And look, the strats are already coming in with like, if you stack all the ads up on top of Onyxia and face them away from the raid or something, it seems to be okay. But still, asking people to communicate and have their brains switched on. I think it looks good. I'm pretty happy with it.
Yeah.
What else have we got here? I won't go into, we did MC the other day, so I won't talk about MC, but another question I had is, how do you guys feel in general real quick about, if the economy is, cheap chips? We talk about if Black Lotus becomes a rather, not abundant resource, but more abundant than before. If consumables, their price starts to go down a bit, if Flask, if Flasks are actually a little bit more affordable now. Just in general, are you cool with the economy fucking settling down a little bit?
Yeah.
I think it's important that it does because it's going to be
shorter time, less time to make money,
more consumable usage as well, right? So, yeah.
Yeah. I think it needs to be more accessible. I think it's good to be a little more communistic in WoW, I think. What about anybody that's spreading the resources out, having put power back in the people's hands and not certain organizations or, cartels, if you will, right? I think it's important to have. Yeah.
Well said, comrade.
I'm glad you love it. Josh, you will not go to Gulag this
Guys, we'll wind it up. I know we've been here a long time. We'll hit the home stretch. Durana, I'll throw it to you. They're going to take us out on a high note here because I know the guys have been doing so well. They're getting a bit tired. We've been 2 hours into this conversation, and you're the young buck with all the energy, mate. I'll ask you this one.
Yeah.
Do you think that from everything you've seen and heard so far, regarding the population makeup and class choice in this season of Mastery. You know, the short season, all the news we've gotten, all the new mechanics, all the meta being up in the air. Do you think that Blizzard has actually done enough to shift the class population a few percentage points? Whether we see shitloads more rogues, whether we see more warlocks, whether we see fewer warriors, you know, God knows. What do you reckon?
I think so. I think even after today's announcement with them introducing some of the dungeon sets earlier, like the tier 0.5, and like the class quests and stuff, that combined with all of the changes they've done, I think that you're going to see more people playing, you know, classes that aren't just like the DPS warrior, right? Like I think that anyone who is a diehard, like I want to pump damage, I don't think that they're going to feel as set in like a warrior, right? I think that rogue is going to do super well. I think that casters are going to be able to keep up earlier than they did when Classic came out, and then there's a chance that they, you know, do way better as it progresses and stuff. So I think it should. If anything, I think it gets more people off of warrior, and maybe that's all they really care about at the moment. Yeah. Maybe that's the only one they're really worried about. And I think so. I think that they've potentially done enough. The one thing that I would say is, like, if they do want to like move people off of melee DPS, like increase the armor on bosses a little bit, and just like, because it's just all it'll do is hurt physical damage dealers, which I know that hurts hunters. So sorry, hunters.
Yeah, shut up, Duranasaur.
Yeah, I'm the worst. But yeah, I do think that you'll see hopefully more people on more diverse classes because of it.
Yeah. Anyone else on anything on that? All I'll say is just to chip in, like, my only fear, and I think it's somewhat of a foregone conclusion now, is that every man, woman, child is going to be a rogue. But, you know, we shall see. Any of you guys have anything on that? We'll wind it up after this one.
World of Warcraft again, baby. Let's go.
Yeah, right? Why is that? Because of the dungeon set, or because... Why do you think that, Josh?
Because of the dungeon set, and also just, like I said, just mental notes from myself on seeing what people were doing on the beta. I just have a funny feeling that, you know, the PvP scene will be flourishing. And they get this amazing gear so early. I just think a lot of people are going to go with it. But Ayle, you just sent me a sneaky little message and said, Josh, before you go, I've got one big thing to point out. Go for it, mate.
Yeah, and this was really just only, if I could add one thing into Season of Mastery, I have an idea. And
a statue of you.
Yeah, and that would be the only thing they haven't really touched on that I would like to see them touch on is world bosses. For people who played meta on world bosses was usually the dominant guild, which also meant the guild with the most people who could play 24 hours a day would get every world boss on the server. Right? So at least for us, you know, playing an Onslaught, I think we got every world boss except for the very first one until we stopped trying for them. Right? Because we just had someone watch it all day. As soon as it spawned, we summoned everybody in. It was dead in 5 minutes and nobody knew. So I would like to see them make an adjustment here, because in my mind, that wasn't the intent of world bosses. They were supposed to have emergent gameplay. They would spawn. There'd be chaos. You know, fun stuff would happen. What I would like to see them do is either have them spawn in random locations or have multiple of them spawn at a time, so one guild can't have a monopoly on them.
That's an interesting point.
The fact that none of us even thought about it goes to show how much Ayle was really the only one who got to experience them in Classic, at least on our realm. Because Melderon and I never got to fucking do it.
First of all, imagine having the job of sitting there 24 hours watching that. I know that's one person. I know. Second, I don't know, Ayle. I think that's part of MMOs, man. Like,
is it?
Don't you think there should be something that is very exclusive, like something in the world?
To counter that, Melderon, I know what you're saying, but what they did with Black Lotus, doesn't that push back against your point? Because Black Lotus was supposed to be exclusive, right? And now we've said not so much.
Not really, because the products that make Black Lotus weren't exclusive, right?
True.
So I see your point of logic there, but I think that there should be something that's very hard to attain, like super, super hard, and only the best of the best can get it.
I think it would still maintain that, because when it spawns in the middle of the day, those people would still be able to get to it, but it wouldn't be in one spot to have one person watched.
Well,
it would be more dynamic, right?
Ayle, with that, I love where your head's at, and I think it's a good concept, because I agree with you. I'm slightly uncomfortable with there being content in the game that only the people that don't sleep ever get to achieve.
Yeah.
But I'm not trying to be a dick here, mate. I'm not sure if your solutions go far enough, because when you say spawn multiple iterations of the boss or have them spawn in random spots around the map, I mean, maybe the random spots around the map, but I still feel like the sweatiest guild would overcome that and be the ones that come out on top.
Absolutely. I think in order to, like, I'm not saying do what they did in like retail where they had like shared like tags, but I mean, I don't see another way to really make it accessible to other people other than doing something like that. I don't know. I do agree in the terms, I think like the strongest skills should be rewarded in a way for that kind of thing. But yeah, it does suck, being on the other end of that where you never really get to experience it, And
I think they would be just due to organization, but it would take away that huge scouting advantage that they have by just literally being able to sit and watch it all day.
Yeah.
What if when the bosses spawn, they're like immune for like a couple hours?
Ooh.
So then it becomes...
That's not bad.
Then it becomes, all right, the boss is up, and more
everyone finds out
that it's up, and then it gives other groups, other guilds, a chance to like put something together.
I like that.
It's kind of interesting.
Crash Inc.
Yeah.
Server crashing coming,
Like spawning at this amount of time, server-wide message,
Yeah. That'd be interesting.
Yeah. Hey, Durana, I didn't ask you, what are you playing for Season of Mastery? And actually, one general question for you as well. I asked the boys and Ayle and Melderon at the start before you were here, talked about how they've come around a lot on Season of Mastery with the onset of the news that we've gotten over the last couple of weeks. You and I talked a few weeks ago now, and understand, when we first got told about Season of Mastery, and understandably, as you've reiterated here today, you were a bit down on it because of the lack of speed running and the world buffs and everything. Have you heard much, or enough, I should say, now to actually get you more interested in Season of Mastery?
I think yes. I'll say yes. If I wasn't doing hardcore, I think that I would want to participate for sure, because I never expected them to go as far as they have, right? To the point where they are like actually like they're adding mechanics to bosses. They're like putting in the time and effort to not just like add health to bosses. And
I don't think any of us expected it.
Yeah,
no, exactly. And so I think, yes, I have come around. I do still love like the original vanilla version of the game. I hope that we get that again at some point, even just the option, maybe alongside of a season. But I do like what they're doing. It does seem like it's going to be fun as like, if you're just playing it conventionally, right? Because I am going to be playing hardcore probably the entire season for the entire year, and just trying to do, we're trying to do in-game content on hardcore characters. And I think I'm just going to spend a year leveling characters to 60, having them die due to someone butt-pulling trash in a raid, and then leveling another one. Like, I'm going to do that for about a year. But I'm so excited to do it because I think it's going to add a new element to the game that I've never had in like all the time that I've been playing vanilla. It's just everything you do has like a real consequence to it. So I'm super excited. I'm playing Hunter, to answer your first question, because that's all I know how to do.
Excellent.
Yeah. So I'll be on a Hunter. I'll probably be leveling multiple just in case, one or more die. But yeah, I'm super stoked. I am tempted to level just like a conventional character and find a guild and just like experience the content, because I do think it's going to be fun to just like do these raids and have them be different. And I don't know how much they're going to continue this into like BWL and AQ40 and Nex.
Yeah.
Because honestly, like if they re-release Nax and they said, hey, it's going to be the same because you guys don't have world buffs, that's still an incredibly difficult raid. Especially when people are not going to be in full bisque gear because everything has been sped up. So you didn't have the time to get every single piece of gear you wanted out of every single raid. Like you're going to go in worse gear with no world buffs. Like Nax will be hard. But if they do buff stuff, if they do say, you know what, we're still going to turn up the dial, even if it's only a little bit, unlike Nax and AQ40, man, that's going to be super fun. And it might be enough for me to, like I said, like on the side level, a conventional character just to try to do that stuff.
Very good. I think it's okay for there to be content out there that's even near impossible. I think that's a cool thing, you know? Even if it's just like one raid or something that only, you know, a very small amount of the player base, because it's something to strive towards. It's something to strive towards it. I think it's something to, you know, really try and, you know, see what you can do towards it. But, you know, obviously it's going to be a little bit different with Season Master with things being shorter and all. But I still think it's a cool idea to have content out there that's extremely difficult, you know?
Absolutely. Well, look, Durana, I reserve the right to hassle you with all my Hunter questions. You can be my Hunter Yoda, if you will. And
anytime.
My man, I love you. And hey, keep it up. I love tracking your you're getting fit as fuck, man. Keep it going in the gym, man. It's great to see you on Twitter.
I'm trying.
You're kicking ass, mate. I love to see it. Look, guys, we'll wind it up there, and I'll just say thank you so much to all of you. Now is the time to plug the shit out of your shit. I love to see it. I will be watching and listening and hanging out with all of you through Season of Mastery. Let's start with Melderon. Actually, no, let's start with Defcamp. Defcamp, shout out who you'd like to shout out. Tell us what's happening with you.
Yeah, so I recently just started streaming again, full time. So, you know, it's like my full time gig, my full time thing that I'm doing now. So, I did announce though that I am going to be streaming only on Twitch. So it's twitch.tv/Defcamp. That is the website. That is the link. Twitch.tv/Defcamp. And we're going to be using the Defcamp Melderon channel still to upload videos, to upload you know, clips of the stream and things like that. But, you know, I'm really psyched to be back. I'm so lucky to have an amazing community that's been so welcoming, and, you know, that I come back and everyone's still there, and it's just been an amazing experience. So if you want to come and join us, guys, it's why can't I fucking say it? Twitch.tv/Defcamp. Thank you.
Very good. And I throw the Countdown to Classic endorsement behind that, and everyone here, quite frankly. Like I said at the top, you know, I can only, when I have the time and he's live and I'm available, I love dropping in Defcamp stream. When he's doing it with Melderon, the banter is top tier. I can't stress that enough. But Melderon, yeah, we'll see you on Defcamp streams, I guess. And best of luck on the big life move to LA coming up, mate.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Let me be a movie star.
Yeah, man. Why not?
No. I got a new job out there. Yeah, as you guys know, I really don't make content anymore, but I can be found on Defcamp streams, and I also do a monthly podcast of Warcraft Reloaded, and any other podcasts that I can be on, especially this one because I love Countdown to Classic. So you'll see me around. I'm not gone forever, but yeah.
When I next go to the Hollywood Walk of Fame and I take a flyer from someone handing out stuff for Madame Tussauds and it's you, and Melderon, my God, you made it.
I made it, Josh.
We did it. We fucking did it. Oh, dude. Ayle, mate, love you. Shout out who you'd like to shout out and give us a little update. How are you? What's happening? What are you going to do?
I want to shout out Countdown to Classic. As I said in the Discord, everything that I am. And, you know, without that, I would be nothing. So, no, I'm just pulling your leg. But, yeah, I'm not really streaming much anymore. You might be able to find one, like a shiny Pokemon. I'll pop up here and there. I'm sure I'll do some Season of Mastery stuff. Otherwise, pretty much here exclusive as long as, you know, Josh can drag me out of my igloo.
No, you guys are always too kind to say yes when I put out the bat signal. I do appreciate it. And Duranasaur, I'm sure you'll be streaming some Season of Mastery. Would that be right, mate?
Oh yeah, absolutely. All the time that I can. Twitch.tv/Duranasaur. Yeah.
Very good. And again, Duranasaur gets the full countdown endorsement. Guys, these guys are here talking to me because I like them, because they're fucking legends. They're good blokes. They're the absolute salt of the earth when it comes to not only content creation, but just the WoW community in general. Please support these guys. If you like me, you like them. That's the end of the story. They're top tier guys. All right, guys. Thank you so much for being here. I'll end the stream, but I'll say I'll have a quick word with you guys off camera as well.
Oh yeah.
But thanks so much.
See you guys.
Hell yeah.